I'm going to call the Select Board meeting of March 26th to order at 6:30 p.m. It's pretty neat to see everybody here. I hope it continues in the future, that we have a lot more people every meeting. So because we have so many people here tonight, I want to take a moment to remind people about public participation in the town, in the Select Board meeting. I'm going to wait a minute until 2 more people walk in. So there's very few seats left. There's 2 here.
2 right here in the front.
But so
Oh, that's okay. We would love to have you.
And there's a sign-up sheet.
Somewhere over here.
and an agenda. So anyway, all meetings of this Select Board are in the public, but not of the public, which means that public will be afforded an opportunity to speak at a certain time in the meeting when called upon by the chair, and is welcome to stay here as long as the order is maintained according to the rules. At the conclusion of each agenda item, but before any action is taken by the Select Board, there may be 5 minutes afforded for open public comment. By majority vote, the body may increase the time for open public comment and its place on the agenda. Comment must be addressed to the chair, not to individuals on the board or to anybody in the audience. Members of the public must be acknowledged by the chair before speaking. If a member of the public has already spoken on a topic, he or she may not be recognized again until others have first been given the opportunity to comment. And needless to say, order and decorum should be observed. So, and if everybody wants to see the entire rules of procedure, it's on the clipboard there. And it's also online, and I urge people to get online to look at the agenda for every meeting. Meetings are Mondays, the 2nd and 4th Mondays of every month. At 6:30 p.m., the agenda is on the board in the town office, online at www.guilfordvermont.com. Net. Thank you. At Green River Covered Bridge, at the Grange building, and at the town office. So, sorry, at the town office and the country store. That is correct.
Randy, can I add that every meeting is televised, of course?
Yes, and every meeting is televised on BCTV. Thank you very much, Ian Keel, for being our guide through these.
There are 2 chairs here in the front that are just waiting for someone to sit on them.
And I'm going to say, we're going to ask once again that whoever is there at the end and at the door, A, please keep it free for people to get out in case of a problem, and this door also, and B, we have a public sign-in sheet, so please sign in. Thank you. So we've gone through the rules of procedure. Are there additions to the, any additions to the agenda for this evening?
I'd like to add the issue with the ownership of the generator that was put out for sale, to add that onto the agenda. Since we have an offer out for sale, but we've just recently found out that we might not actually own the thing we're offering for sale, that we deal with that immediately.
I don't think that it qualifies an emergency.
So I guess my concern is legally, if somebody shows up and said, hey, I saw your offer for sale on Front Porch Forum, I'm here to pick up my generator, I'm going to accept your offer, thank you very much, what do we do?
We say we're going to postpone it until we do a little due diligence.
But we can't actually without a vote from the board.
But if they haven't placed an offer, I mean, they have to...
We made the offer. We made the offer.
Of what?
in writing.
Putting it...
Whoever wants it can
Anybody
take
who
it
wants
for
the
free.
dinner, it's not for sale.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay,
it's
that's-
offer,
that's-
acceptance.
You're right.
Yeah.
No,
You've
that-
created a contract.
Yeah, that makes good.
Okay, well,
Okay, we can
I
add
think we
that,
should
we'll add that after the
Add that at the end, yeah.
correction memo.
Or at least to make a decision, take it.
thank you, Gabby.
Yeah. Just to deal with it
Okay. And the change to the agenda order, does anybody have any changes to the agenda order?
No.
So I would like to take items 8K, which says capital plan and town office source and use of funds, and change that to town office renovation plans and proposed project costs, because we will not be talking about the capital plan and the source and use of funds until the April 9th meeting. Is that acceptable to everybody?
Sure. Can we see that again?
Yes.
Sorry.
It's called Town Office Renovation Plans and Proposed Project Costs instead of Capital
I don't think, I mean, so again, now we're going back to, we're adding something that wasn't on there before that isn't an emergency. So can we just keep it the way it is now?
But we are only going to talk about the town office.
Okay, that's fine. You just want to delete capital plan and
Yeah.
source and
Yeah,
use?
she's
Yeah.
just changing the language, isn't she?
I don't know.
Yes.
That's my question.
Yeah, we're only talking about town office. We're not talking about source and use of funds, and we're not talking about the whole capital plan, because my understanding is that you and Richard and Peter are not ready to do that until
That's
That's
correct.
correct.
next year. Is that correct? Okay, so that was an error. All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of March 12th,
So moved.
2018.
Madam Chair,
I'm sorry.
the last meeting, there was a motion made and passed that was sort of out of the select board purview,
So
and I believe that should be corrected immediately, if not sooner.
if you are talking, Dick, I believe about the office generator, that is just been
Yeah.
added, that's been added to the agenda. We've been through the rules of procedure. I think you came in here a little bit late, but I'm sure you're familiar with them because they were adopted when you were on the select.
But it shouldn't be in the minutes.
Yeah, so Dick, what we did is we added it as an additional agenda item under new business, so it could be taken care of and put on the minutes.
We had a motion to, Richard moved to
Yes,
adopt
I
the
did.
minutes of March 12th. Is there a second?
I will second.
Are there any comments?
Just because we have roll call votes, you should, well, the way I've seen it in the past is you actually write out, like the ayes are name. You don't just say roll call vote taken. You should put ayes and nays and abstentions. Just
Oh,
spell
on
it
the
out.
minutes themselves, yes, of course.
Every
I
single
didn't
time?
catch that.
Yes.
Good job, Gavin.
Yeah, rather than just say roll call vote taken.
Is that a legal thing?
That's just how I've seen it done in the past. We do roll call votes in other boards, so I'm
All right.
assuming, and it seems like the right thing to do, because if you took a roll call, then you need to note the roll call.
I don't think it hurts, you know, I think everyone
Okay.
was in the affirmative
So-
on
So
every
does it
single
need,
one,
do I
but
need to make an amendment to my motion?
Yes, I'll amend your
With-
motion to approve the minutes with the amended
very good.
language. But you need a second. the amendment.
Second.
I will
And so
second
do-
it again.
Okay, so do
With
we
the-
need to take a roll call vote to do this?
No,
No.
that was because,
Oh, okay.
It's because Richard was on the phone.
so
Oh.
It's
because
consistent, that's good.
all of the roll call votes were unanimous, what we need to do is write everybody's names 17 times for all the motions. And I think we could sign the minutes pending that correction.
If it passes.
If it passes. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next item on the agenda is Don Spencer, boot drop.
What happened to
Hey,
highway?
Oh, sorry, highway, thank you. Sorry, Don, sit down. Do you have anything from,
I
Danny on this?
have not seen Danny in, well, since the beginning of last week. So I do know that they've been doing a lot of grading
Yeah.
and filling in the potholes. Is primarily what they've been doing. Obviously, they had a small amount of sanding to do, and fixing equipment. So
thank you. Don Spencer, boot drop.
First of all, I'd like to bring a certificate up to y'all. You know, so I came from Georgia, right? It's a certificate thanking you for your help and participation in last year's boot drop and your
May I ask
support
you to
for it.
move- oh,
Sorry.
Thank you, Don.
Yep, but your assistance, your help has been beneficial to our Veterans Outpost Outreach Center. We probably took in 10% of our total year's revenues just from that event itself. And we thank you for it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Really?
Yes. And we're very low key, I guess
Yeah.
you'd say. But at the same time, it was a big benefit. It kept our lights going and kept us able to continue doing work counseling and advocating for the veterans in the area.
Thank you.
So,
Terrific.
thank you.
Yeah,
It's a great
we
service.
really appreciate the work that you're doing and we'll help in any way we can.
Very good. And that is a good segue into my next part.
I thought so.
Part two of that is that we would like to repeat this event again. This would be probably the 4th year now, on the 6th of October, I believe. It's the first Saturday in October. With your approval, then I will submit the paperwork to the department, or the Highway Department and the State Police. So,
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Don. That's
All right.
great.
We really
Thank you for making the
appreciate you
trip over
coming.
and telling us.
Thank
And
you
I'm
again.
looking for our other, last year's.
First Saturday of
Oh,
October.
right, so we'll
Yep.
just like keep piling them up.
there
Thank
you go.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
I did.
Gordon did.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ellie, are you around the corner?
Yeah.
So if you don't mind standing up over here
Yeah.
next to Richard and.
So we should be addressing you,
Oh,
correct?
Yes,
This is
more or
Reagan,
less.
maybe?
but- Hi, Reagan. So this is the Community Collaborative for Guilford, Ellie Mayonin and Reagan, I'm sorry, I forgot your last name. Phoebe.
Oh,
Presenting tonight?
Okay, so we were just asked to come and do an update to the select board as to what we're doing. And there's been a lot happening. So we've been working on this project really since a little before 2013, but Community Collaborative for Guilford was actually formed in 2015. And over the past couple of years, we've gained, were awarded 2 different grants. One was from VCDP for a planning or feasibility grant, and the other is from the Promise Communities Initiative. The planning grant was for $30,000, and the town is our fiscal agent for that. And the other grant, CC4G, is a fiscal agent, and that's for $150,000 that we received that grant. So over the past really 2 years, we've been working on a feasibility study regarding building an early learning and community resource center in Algiers. And we've been providing resources and programming for families with young children in Guilford in collaboration with many community partners. And that second piece has really begun in November when we received the Promise Communities grant. So with the feasibility study, we learned a great deal about wetlands, storm drainage, permeable surfaces, building design and footprint, and ultimately those factors, in addition to the projected income per square foot of the building we were proposing, led us to the conclusion that the original site we were working on, which is adjacent to the Guilford Community Church, where the mobile home used to be, that site will not work for us. We know the need for childcare in our community is great, especially for infants and toddlers. And we know that in order to keep existing families and bring new families into Guilford, high quality and consistent childcare is an essential ingredient. So one of our goals is to continue to work on that, on creating an early learning and resource center. Our short-term vision, our long-term vision is to acquire land in Guilford, either donated to CC4G or purchased, upon which to build. Our short term, we are looking right now for space to rent so we can begin a child care program to meet the immediate need. So if you all have suggestions about where we might find a building or a home that could be rented, please let us know. So I wanted to introduce Reagan again. Reagan Beebe is hired. We hired her as our outreach and program coordinator. We've also hired a bookkeeper, Bill Meese, and Carol Schnabel, Pete Hetzel's wife, who is a doula, is also working with us. But I wanted Reagan to tell you a little bit about our programs that we're working on.
Terrific. Thank you, Reagan.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
thanks for having us. So we started a parent-baby play group with Lornie Cochran, and that was for 6 weeks. And then we did a parent support group also with Lornie Cochran and Catherine Mason, and it meets at the school, and that was for 6 weeks. And we're going to do another one too. We did an open gym with the Guilford Rec Committee, and that was 6 weeks, and we had a really, really great turnout for that. So we're going to try to do it again, but do more an outdoors version. So we're going to do things like in 6 week periods with the Guilford Rec, and we're actually starting right now yoga with childcare, which is like amazing. So we're really excited about that. And we're going to have, so we have 2 childcare providers that come and work with us, and then we're able to have the parents do yoga in the gym. We
So
have
the babies aren't going to be doing yoga?
no,
Oh, okay.
no. Although that is so much fun. Yeah.
Maybe next time.
Yeah. The parent workshops that we've done 3 so far at the Guilford School, and they were great turnouts. We had fire and safety and winter wellness with the Guilford Fire Department and one of the local doctor pediatrician, Janet Tokard, she's in the area. Then we had an ACEs training, which is adverse effects of childhood.
Adverse early childhood experiences.
It was deep. And then we had March, we had place-based learning with David Sobel, which had a huge turnout. A lot of people from Brattleboro came, which was really great. And then in April, we're going to have 2 local, Andy and Robin
Davis, local
Gonna do
musicians.
Music with children, how to use music with children. And then I'm really excited about this, the natural playscapes. Andy Lofney is building or using nature to put together a playground kind of thing behind the Broadbrook Grange. And we have a lot of other projects. And this is all we've done already in just the 3 months.
Without any facility.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we have an office over the country store, but yeah, from home, really. So, in Guilford, all our Guilford homes. So, yeah, really excited.
And a couple of other things that we've done. We've mentioned the office. We've also worked with the school to purchase some outdoor playground equipment for the new pre-K classroom. Playground. Yeah. But they also have an outdoor classroom that we'll be buying some equipment for. And some equipment for the inside open gym that we have been supporting. And we just Sunday were able to purchase a large number of supplies and equipment from a childcare program and teacher training program in New Jersey that we have a connection with someone in Guilford. So we just got a number of beautiful things to go into the new center once we get it up and running. So I'm excited about that. We've also established an emergency fund committee, and that's comprised of a number of representatives from around the community. The counselor at the school is part of this. Pat from the food pantry. We have 2 or 3 parents who are part of the committee. Someone from Guilford Church, and Richard Davis, who is our health officer. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. And it's really a fund that's been set aside this year for Guilford families in financial need during emergency situations. Mm-hmm. So we just finished.
Is it a loan fund or a grant fund?
It is there's no expectation of repayment.
And could I ask a question?
Yes.
How would families find out about it?
We just finished creating the request form. So we'll be going out, all those folks I just mentioned will have that form, but we're also going to be going out to other agencies, both locally and even in Brattleboro that serve Guilford families, and let them know that the fund is available. And we've just started inviting other resources to our board meetings to come and inform us about what they do, and so how we could be partnering together. Mm-hmm. So our big goals, just to wrap up, because I know we're short for time, is we need to find a space to begin the program. We're going to continue to expand our work through the Promise Communities Grant, and that's the programming that we're doing for both parents and for kids. We'd like to expand our board members, both in skills, diversity, and actual members. We need some more folks. We'd love to have some more members, because there's a lot of work to do. And seek additional funding sources to carry out our goals and to become more sustainable. And that's it. If you have any questions, let us know.
I have a quick question. Could you somewhere let people know what the requirements of the building, the interim building that you're looking for are? I mean, you don't have to tell me now. I'm just saying.
Yeah. We've actually got a letter together that we're going to start handing out to folks that we come in contact with. So
will you put it on Front Porch Forum as well, just so that?
We may. Yeah.
I mean, I think a third of the households in town are subscribing to Front Porch Forum, so it's a pretty good reach.
We regularly use Front Porch Forum.
Yeah, for your other
and,
announcements, right.
Our Facebook page, and a lot of social media to get out word about what we're doing. So.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah, that's great. This started in 2013, so you've made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
End of 2013, beginning of 2014, correct?
Well, the idea was started before then, but it really got solidified during the
Vermont
rural,
Council on Rural Development.
That's the one.
Oh, great.
with the led by Paul Costello. So.
Right.
Great guy.
Thank you.
All right.
So,
Thanks.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
you, Ray.
say that there is, I don't know if people know this, but there is another fund in Guilford that is a loan fund for families that face a demonstrated temporary financial hardship. So for example, if the furnace dies in the winter or something like that. And this fund is mentioned in the town report every year. And the current balance of that fund is about $19,000. So just in the apropos funding for emergency situations, the town has a $19,000 fund that it can loan out.
What
to.
is the name of that fund?
The revolving loan fund.
Revolving
And
loan
it's
fund.
written up every year and, tracked in the town report every year, but I just thought it might be worth mentioning that there is that fund. River Meadows project in Green River. Steve. And
Steve
you'll
Libby.
introduce Steve Lemke and our floodplain administrator in
Steve Libby.
Steve Libby.
So I'm Steve Lemke, I live on River Road in Green River. I'm here tonight with Steve Libby, who's the Executive Director of the Vermont River Conservancy.
Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. We're here to talk to you about a project called the River Meadow Project. It's on a piece of property 7/10 of a mile south of the Green River Bridge. All right? And just for, to let people know what piece of property we're talking about and the history of it, we're talking about a property that could be, you might hear it in the future called the River Meadow Project, you might hear it called the Girardi property, or you might hear it referred to as the old Squire's Junkyard property. So all that is related to this, and Steve and I have been working on various bits and pieces of this for some time. And I'm going to turn it over to Steve to talk about the role that the River Conservancy has in this.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Yeah, so this is really just a kind of a information for you guys to know where we're at with the project. I have just information. This is just a map of the property, and then there's people familiar with where this is? Okay, so it's on this map, it's the parcel that's between River Road and the river. It's 16.2 acres. We have a purchase agreement to...
This here?
Yes, that parcel.
Ian.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you maybe
Yeah,
direct
maybe,
yourself?
so,
Yeah,
because
so that
people
they don't
want,
get your
everybody
back,
wants
yeah.
to hear about it.
Thank you. Sorry. So we started this project about 18 months ago when Steve Lemke introduced me to the property. We saw this as an opportunity for our organization, which is, we're basically a land trust that works statewide, and we focus on lands along rivers. We do a lot of swimming hole protection projects, and since Tropical Storm Irene, we've done a lot of flood resilience projects, protecting land that will benefit communities during floods. And that's really what this project was about. This is a very active floodplain, so that every time the Green River floods, water spills over into this property, the energy in the water is dissipated, sediment is deposited. It's an important part of the whole kind of ecological system of the Green River watershed. So we've been in conversation with the current owner for about a year and a half. On January 1st, we signed a purchase agreement, which gives us right now 6 months to work through a number of steps before we can close on the property. Part of that is fundraising, so we're now actively writing grants for purchase of the property. We also just completed a phase 1 environmental assessment, because we turned to the second page of that.
Yikes.
This is what the property looked like in 2002, which was pretty well covered with automobiles and different kinds of metal. So it's pretty likely that there was some sort of contamination of the site during that period of time. We don't know how much, so we've now commissioned and just received what's called the Phase 1 environmental assessment, which basically looked at the property, kind of did a background research on any records that the state had about previous issues with the property. And it's pretty likely that the recommendation will be for a Phase 2 environmental assessment, which is a much more detailed, to go out and, sample the soil, dig test pits, do a pretty... So at this point, we don't know if the property is contaminated. Just seeing how it was used, there's a pretty good likelihood that there's maybe some issues with it. And our goal at the end of this will be to clean up the site, or to have it managed in a way that will alleviate the contamination problem. So I don't know how long it's going to take. It's certainly going to probably take beyond the closing period. So we'll probably own this property if we can fundraise successfully during the cleanup process. We don't know, in the long term, what the best use of the property will be once it's conserved. We do know that if we're involved, and the funders that are involved, that the primary thing will be for the property to maintain its active floodplain function. And that may mean, some additional plantings along the river to help create a riparian buffer to help with that floodplain restoration. So that's kind of where we're at right now. There's a lot of moving parts still, but we just wanted to kind of give you some of the basics. So I'm happy to entertain any questions.
How much money are you trying to raise for do you not, is that like part of a negotiation thing that you don't want to talk about?
No, the negotiation's finished. We had an appraisal done of the property. So the funders that we go to require us to pay fair market value for properties, or we can't pay more than fair market value, I should say. So we had it appraised at $150,000. There's probably $30,000 on top of that in transaction costs. We have to survey the property, pay for these environmental assessments, that sort of thing. So our budget is about $180,000. Basically, the appraiser said there were 2 potential house sites on the property, and so kind of looked at it as from that point of
In
view.
the floodplain?
Well, a good portion of the property is not in the floodplain. There's actually a terrace right along the road that's pretty wide that you could, when you look at it, you could definitely see how that could, be developed into house sites.
So, and how close are you to raising the 180?
We have 2 grant applications in right now. We haven't heard back from the second one. We'll be applying for other monies, so we don't know yet. But we're going to work
Do you
hard at this
have
one.
individual contributions? Do you have backers, donors to contribute?
We haven't gone out for a kind of local private fund. Typically what we do is we'll go to these granting agencies first and see how much we can acquire through the grants. And then that helps then kind of what's the gap after that.
So in regard to the purchase of this property and the mission of your organization, the major theme is water. Is that right?
There's really 2 major themes. The major one is this is a very important floodplain. There's very few of these type of properties in the Green River watershed. It's a very kind of high gradient watershed, and these meadows like this, and this from the Green River Bridge downstream to this property is really one of the few places in Guilford where there's some broad floodplain access. There's some other spots too, but our thinking is that after what we learned from Irene is that these areas are really important to keep active as part of the river system. So the floodplain function is the main thing. The secondary function could be public access to the river. There's almost half a mile of river frontage there. We see public access and floodplain protections being very compatible uses. We've heard that a lot of people go to the Green River Dam for swimming, and sometimes that gets crowded, and maybe this could be a kind of overflow river place. There's not like a dramatic swimming hole along here, but there's a number of kind of dunking pools along the river. So that's the kind of thing that once we get through some of these early steps, we'd love to come back to the community and kind of get people's ideas of what would be the appropriate use of that.
The other thing I would say from 2 points. One, the floodplain administrator, it's the last piece of floodplain before Greenfield. So it's an important piece that way as well. But also we're gonna be looking to form a small advisory group, because we don't really have, if this goes through, the River Conservancy will not be, well, they could be the long-term holder of the deed of this property, but not likely. Your preference would be to have another entity be the long-term leaseholder, so or deed holder. So one of the things that we'll be looking at is use of the property, what's the best way to deal with it, getting a group of advisory people together to have a lot of different ideas of how to use the property and what might be good for the town, good for the people. You know, this is not an individual ownership situation. It's a conservancy issue that would be for the entire town. So that's why we wanted people to know it. So if you hear something about it, it's the River Meadow project, it's the old Girardi property, or it's the old junkyard property. So that's what we're talking about.
Great.
Gabby?
I was really excited to see this come through Wyndham Regional Commission's Brownfields,
Yeah.
because it's an exciting project brownfields-wise. We don't get too many that are, repurposing industrial buildings, right? So this is a really interesting one. It was near the river, and the reuse would be for the community, so.
Has it been declared a brownfield, though? Has it been categorized as a brownfield?
And so what
Well,
do
I
you
mean,
mean
they
by
have to
coming
do the
through?
test, but it went
Yeah.
through the brownfields program because of the potential for contamination.
Yeah.
So, pending the phase one, we'll see what's actually on there.
And we're also
So the
looking at-
Wyndham Regional Commission, I'm sorry, is actually going to be doing the phase one evaluation of this?
They-
No, it's a grant.
Trying to figure,
Well, Wyndham Regional hired the consultant to do the phase one assessment.
okay.
So what they did is they came through the brownfields program. It's run
Right.
by WRC for grant money, I believe, right? Not loan, grant?
It's a grant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
as far as I know.
So it goes through the program in WRC.
Okay,
WRC doesn't do it per se.
yeah.
They hire it out to a
But so stage
QEP.
one is already
Yeah.
underway,
phase one.
phase one.
Phase one has been completed, 2 days ago, it was completed, and was submitted to the state. They'll review it, and then my guess is that there will be a phase two assessment.
But it's
Well,
really excited to have a brownfield that's being cleaned up.
Yeah.
Well, it's
And-
also.
And then being sort of available for public use.
Yeah.
That to me is what's really exciting.
Well, and it's also fortuitous that you're presenting here, a project that's coming in the future when we have so many people both here and also the many people who love to watch our select board meetings on television, so, there's a good outreach here.
Yeah, and I'm happy to come down and give you periodic updates. It's gonna be probably a month or two before we know a lot more about the contamination issue, but as often as you'd like. I don't wanna, overburden you with information, but
So
Weekly.
the purpose of advising the select board is so that the town is aware of this project and for soliciting advisory committee input or members
Yeah.
or something like that.
Well, the other thing tonight too was to, if all five of you said that's the worst idea I ever heard, then we might rethink some of it, but not likely, so we wanted you to be aware of it. At some point, we may want, if we go for a particular grant or something, we may want select board approval of it just for what you said, Gabby, that this is something the town would be behind if the following things were fulfilled. And, if the land is clean, that's some really good agricultural land down there as well. So.
So may I ask about this picture, which I don't think you talked about?
yeah, so that's how it looks earlier this winter. So
Pure as the driven snow.
here's a driven snow, and that's,
Did you get
I
it?
think, it's, a cleaned up, the cars are gone. We don't know what's in the soil, but the site itself,
Yeah, it's
it
cleaned
looks
up,
like
yeah.
that was,
Looks good.
and there's snowshoes. That's kind of the recreational potential. So we tried to kind of capture what it is and how it could be 20 years from now, like that.
A great town asset.
It's a good case study of what was, what is, and what might be.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes.
So I'm gonna just take my copy and pass it around because
Yeah,
there,
I
if
can
you-
copy.
if you
people
fold-
want to see.
Yeah,
Yeah, do people want to see this?
So thank you so much for coming all the way from
Yeah,
Montpelier
thank
to
you,
share this
Steve.
with us.
sure. I'm getting to really love
Really?
Guilford. It's a great town.
We like it too.
It's amazing, so.
Really appreciate that. And
Thanks.
thank you.
You're
for
doing
all
good
the
work too.
So are we gonna hear something from you like by the end of June, because that's when your purchase?
There's a lot of pieces that have to fall into place, and I don't know
No, you
exactly
had
what-
mentioned a 6-month,
Yeah, we have,
timeline.
right now, we have a July 1st deadline on the purchase agreement.
yeah,
I don't know today whether we're gonna hit that or not, and so there's still a lot of pieces that have to come together on this, and it's mainly getting this assessment done so the funders that we go to will have a level of understanding and confidence in what needs to happen to the site.
Could you just tell me again what the name of your organization is?
Vermont River Conservancy.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for
Yes.
Thanks
introducing
very
the
much,
project.
yeah.
It's really appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is Planning and Conservation Commission appointments. Do you have a list for us?
Yeah, there's two up for your consideration. One is Thayer Tomlinson for
Planning Commission.
the Planning Commission, and the second is for their Willem Van Loon for the Conservation Commission to replace Susan James, who recently moved out of Guilford.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Richard.
Oh, I'll second them.
Richard Veranda. Thank you. Any discussion?
Well, just that it's really nice that Susan put in so much time there, and Wim is her son, and he's a forester, so
Right.
it's not nepotism. It's somebody who has
It's
a really
talented.
broad skill set
Right. Thank you.
and was raised in
And
Guilford.
we should say we're sorry to see Susan leave
Yeah.
Guilford.
Right.
Yeah, well,
We're very sorry, and she did a lot with the
She
natural
did.
resources inventory work. She wrote 2 grants and still kept going even after the state didn't give us money, and then they started cobbling smaller grants together to create enough money to start a project. So that was all Susan.
yeah, and luckily, a lovely young couple moved to her home.
Yes.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the 2018-2019 Local Emergency Operations Plan, which is basically the same as last year's plan. There are a few different names and a few additions based on information that and things that I've learned over the last year. I passed it on to Alyssa Sabeto, who handles all things emergency and hazard mitigation related at Wyndham Regional. And she was grateful to get it before being prompted, before sending out the prompts. Sent me two recommendations for moving something around in the plan itself to a different place, to the names of the two shelters, and that was one change that she asked me, which I did. And the second was a question about why was animal control officer highlighted, and it wasn't, so I unhighlighted it. Those were, so she's approving the plan. She thinks we've done another good job, and I would simply ask that the select board readopt the plan. Next year will be more, it will be a difficult plan, not a difficult plan, but a more time-consuming venture, because the whole template for the emergency operations plan is changing. And in my estimation, it's going to be more efficient and more serviceable in case of an emergency than what we have. But this year, it's just a draft template. So we were asked to follow the 2016 template.
Can I mention also that I believe the select board has reviewed that online, the LEOP.
Yeah, I sent
It
it
was
to
in the
everybody.
materials.
Right.
So I just wanted that to be
Thank you.
clear.
And was Chuck involved in getting this information together, so he's starting to get familiar with everything?
Chuck and I worked on the whole plan, and then he went through all of the addendums, which are torturous. They're from FEMA, and they're partly from the state, and then they have to be filled out and online and in hard copy, and he did all of that work, so.
And he still wants to consider the job.
And yes, and so yes, we did work together on this so that he is familiar with the process and the resources at the Emergency Operations Center. It's all, actually, one of the things that Peter helped us do is put everything into, we have now an EMD at guilfordvermont.net email account and a Google Drive where everything is uploaded, so we can access it from anywhere, not a hard drive and not here necessarily, but anywhere, so that in case of emergency. So we are well on our way to being efficient and perhaps knowing what we're doing.
That's a good thing.
So I would entertain a motion to adopt the 2018-2019
Also
local
moved.
emergency
Second.
operations plan. Miranda Richard. Any discussion? Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. So we come to a rather sad moment. Jeremiah Sund, who is our assessor clerk, has tendered his resignation. And we are, well, on behalf of the select board, I'm just going to say, I'm sorry to see you go. I'm pretty
Me
sure
too.
everybody else.
Really?
And we really appreciate everything you did, particularly during the 2017 reappraisal and making things work here so well. I guess we wish you really well, but if you aren't happy there, let us know.
Yeah, I don't know, can I talk on this?
Yeah, I will
Sorry.
invite you to say,
Yeah, I don't know the formal procedures.
Yes.
But yeah, okay. That's really why I showed up tonight, was to let everyone know that, you know, I've been stepping down as an assessor clerk in town. Been given an opportunity with Nimerick, the company I've been working for part-time. And so I was gonna open it up to any questions. I don't really wanna get any personnel without going into executive, like, session. I don't, with all these people here, I don't really wanna do that. To kick everyone out of the room.
well, it would be a personnel matter, and so we
Yeah.
would talk about it in an executive session anyway. So.
Right, I just don't think I can
Yeah.
do that another time when there's not so many people here. It's
Excuse me.
just inconvenient for everybody. Just really, I can give you an update of where the office is. I mean, we went through the reappraisal, as everyone knows. So I just like to take this opportunity to kind of, like I said, touch on a few points. So thinking about, I'd spoken to Peter Hetzel, sorry, not Peter Root.
Pete Hetzel.
Pete Hetzel, about possibly using the surplus of the reappraisal funds to invest in a municipal bond. I know Vernon does this with some of their, until the next reappraisal. So I asked the listers to kind of follow up on that, to see if that's a possibility. We're gearing up for the next reappraisal. It's going to be down the road. We've had preliminary discussions with Eagle Imagery, doing aerial flyovers, doing oblique imagery. They give us a webinar presentation. We're going to do a kind of a cost analysis to see if it's a feasible practice. And then at that point, the select board will be brought in on this. We have he has a PowerPoint presentation, and we can forward that along to you at any point. And I guess everything else is pretty much standard. I mean, Lisa's more than capable of taking on, you know, and I know the position's going to change, but I mean, she can handle everything as far as the duties as a lister goes. So,
When is your last day?
be next week, probably Tuesday.
And you're going on to, did you say a full-time position?
Right. I work for a reappraisal company
Yeah.
currently, and then I'll be servicing Dover, maintaining my consulting position up in Dover. It's just 1 day a week where, yeah, so that's where I'll be. I'll be traveling around the state doing reappraisal.
So the Eagle Imagery.
Yes.
Is this like a drone company or something that would
Aerial
be?
flyover, same that does the ortho imagery for the state. It's similar. It's an airplane
It's like
flyover.
this.
It's similar to that, where you get if you're any familiar with like Bing imagery, map imagery. It's kind of like an angle view of the property, and they can get within 6 inches, so you can measure aerially within 6 inches. They can do things like year-over-year comparison, so that they could just do a flyover and do comparison from 2015 to, say we did a reappraisal in 2025. They can do a change finder
Really?
and run analytics to get how many, you know, and then they can also take our existing sketches, upload them on imagery, and give us an estimation of which properties we may need to just, you know, so the idea is that you're cutting labor costs of going to every property in town and doing it more on a digital.
So you and Lisa would be recommending that this be an annual service?
No, it's only for reappraisal. I think it'd be only cost effective in reappraisal.
Like, so that would be 2025, which is, reappraisals are every 8 years, if I'm...
Every 10, there's the opportunity, depending on how the market goes, that we can do a statistical reval in 5-year period. If the market gets too far out of, kind of, if your market changes too much, it might be beneficial to do a 5-year update, because then you could push out the full another 10.
Oh, I see.
So once you get outside that 5-year range, the state won't let you do a statistical. You have to do a door knocking, essentially visit every property. So it's really, if the market stays stagnant, then it's probably not worth it to do it in 5. You know, so you kind of have to be prepared to do it if it makes sense. But if not, you know, because the 5-year could be cost savings to the town. So.
It's interesting.
I know no one wants to talk about it because we just did it, but that's.
So, yeah, so 2015, 2020, 5 plus 7 is 22, and then it would either be 2027 or 2032.
Right, so it'd be 2023.
Hopefully we'll all be out of here by then.
2023 would be the 5-year roughly, and then it'd be, you know, 10 years from that date would be 33, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah, it will
way down
be
the
a
road.
different kind of later by then.
Totally later.
Yeah, but anyway, we're just looking at the possibilities right now.
That's interesting.
It's a huge expense, but if it can save us labor, I think it would be a good.
Worth doing the cost benefit.
It's free to look at, so.
Thank you. So you're planning to stick around for a little bit?
Yes, I'm gonna
Okay.
add plenty of work
We'll
to
talk
try to
about
finish up.
Personnel stuff.
So we don't have to do our official emotional farewells?
Oh
or
yeah,
anything?
you
Okay.
bottle that up.
We want to
We can officially say thank you for all
Oh.
your good work.
Thank you.
Yes,
Do we have to
appreciate
do
it.
that?
That's what we've done. in the
with
past.
regret?
Oh.
Yeah, I think the
Steep
with
regret.
great regret.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Are you so moving?
I'm so moving. We accept his resignation.
I'll second.
Oh, and it is so moving.
Sadly,
Sadly, and with great thanks.
yes,
Yeah.
we really
Much thanks.
appreciate all you've done.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
if you
appreciate
change your
That was
mind.
understated.
I think everybody can vote no, and then what happens?
He's got to be out of here anyway.
Thank
All
you.
in favor?
Thanks. Aye.
Aye.
Good
Thank
work.
Next on the agenda is the Brookfield service and the power generators annual service contract proposals for the 3 generators in operation in town. Those 3 generators, yes.
Yep.
Those proposals were on
Right.
in the materials.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is there a discussion of,
Have we done this annually,
we
historically?
have,
Every year?
No, but we should be.
When was the last time we had them serviced?
Well,
oh,
they
they're
haven't
serviced every
serviced
year, we just
every
haven't gone
year.
out for a
We
bid.
just haven't, yeah, correct.
Can we just have some background about where the 3 generators are?
Highway, garage, community church, and the fire station.
And those are our emergency shelters, I assume?
The highway is an emergency shelter, the community church is an emergency shelter, and the fire station is the fire station.
And so do
And
we,
the
where
EOC.
are we getting the funds? Where do we usually pay for the servicing from? Like, 'cause we have the RERP grant, right?
These don't come out of the emergency funds.
Yes, they have in the
Oh,
past.
they have?
Yeah.
What's the, can someone explain to me too,
Jesus.
I seek clarification too on what the RERP funds are for?
So the two, so we thought we were gonna get 3 years, fiscal year ending 17, 18, and 19, of $15,000 a year for the emergency preparation, training grants. We received a grant of $15,000 for fiscal year 2017, which we used. We have a grant for fiscal year 2018, which ends in June, which we are in the middle of using. And we were informed, I think it was
And that was, I'm
last,
sorry, for 15?
15,000, yeah. And we were informed last week that the grant that was going to be made available to the Vermont Yankee towns in the Vermont Yankee area is not going to be available in 2019 because of the agreement between the state and Vermont Yankee. So there's no longer, they're assuming, no longer going to be the risk of the dried caskets and all of that other stuff. So there's no need for an emergency preparedness training, ongoing supplies, funding to the contiguous towns.
Just a detail, dry casks, not dry caskets.
Casks.
Right, I mean,
Right.
it's just a,
Yes,
you know what I'm saying.
I do. Did I say caskets?
You did, but that's okay.
So sorry. Well, maybe.
I don't mean to be
Um,
critical. It's
So,
just-
we have actually in the past 2 years, you're right, and I'm now sorry that I didn't remember that, used, or that last year and this year used the funds to pay for the servicing of the the generators. Next year, fiscal year 2019, unbeknownst to us, it will now have to come out of our budget.
And that's why we're putting it out to bid.
And that's why we're putting it out to bid. That and the fact that we wanted to have competitive bids in hand for the servicing of these 3 generators.
And so, am I correct in seeing that we have 2 options here?
We have a bid from
One.
Powers and a bid from Brookfield. Brookfield Service,
Is
yes.
there a recommendation?
I have a recommendation, but I don't know if any. I mean, I would recommend that we go with Powers because it's way less costly and because they show up and do their work and invoice and communicate with us.
And they have 2 options, right? A twice a year or once a year? Is that
Right.
how it
They
works?
actually presented 3 options
Right,
to us,
yeah.
annual, semi-annual, and quarterly. Thus far, Brookfield has been providing us an annual service where they come out, test the generators, change the oil,
Check the battery.
check the battery, all of those things. yes.
Tell us if we need to buy anything else and,
Yeah.
do any more maintenance or servicing, which is not included in the contract. So the 2 contracts are, and we have not had a great history with Brookfield in the last 2 years, just unfortunately. Either in being responsive or in coming to service when we had a problem, or in letting us know what they were doing.
Do we have any background on Powers in regard to their
We have-
quality of service?
We have experience with the generator that's currently offline at the garage in terms of their assessment of that generator, which was different from the Brookfield.
It was very different
Very
from what
different.
Brookfield presented to us about that.
Um,
And they, because they actually did no work, they also did not even charge us for their service time when they came out.
And I have had experience with Powers on a personal basis, but I have a commercial generator at my house that is 11 years old, that they have serviced for 11 years very well. So I don't know if anybody else knows anything else about generators and power, but
Is the
Powers.
cost differential for them to come out and service it after this is done? Like in an emergency situation, is it the same pretty much for both of them? I didn't pick up on that. Peter, when you were,
Brookfield did not
They
present
don't give
to
us a-
us
yeah.
their hourly costs
Okay.
like Powers did.
right?
Powers outlines what their regular
Right.
hours are, emergency hours, holiday hours.
but we have an invoice from Brookfield, don't we?
No, I just, and we don't have to. chase it
We
this
do have an
second,
invoice from the work they did over at the church
Yeah.
about a month ago. And I would have to look it up to see what that cost was.
I'll make a motion to accept the annual version of the service contract with Powers and take the money out of the RERP fund.
This year,
Well, FY18, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
gonna happen now, right?
Well, this service agreement is for FY19 because,
No, it's for, they're not, did we do it this year already?
yes, Brookfield already serviced them in December.
Okay, so, we're ahead of the, okay, so then don't take it, we'll take it out of the ERP fund if we have one, and if not,
I
general
mean, it
fund.
makes perfect sense
Yeah.
to be coming
Seems
out of the
like-
operations
right.
budget to service our generators.
So do you need to alter your motion?
I don't think so.
No,
Okay.
she said for fiscal
I'll
year
second your
18, but
motion.
It's 2019. Richard, thank you. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I don't know where you want this. I don't have my list. This next item on the agenda is the select board liaisons to committees. So, reaching into my bad memory, that is Gabby, Conservation Commission, Veranda, Recreation Commission,
And cemetery.
and Cemetery. Sheila, Planning Commission. You doing anything?
Depends who needs help.
Are you doing anything?
I could.
We will put you someplace else.
Okay.
Anybody?
Well,
Aren't you
I'm
the liaison
to the library.
Library.
Yeah, sure, the library.
Are we?
I think we should have one for, Brandon and I usually go to AFD meetings.
I haven't been for a long time, but I am willing to go.
I think we should still give them support by showing up, having a liaison.
Is there a volunteer for that? It's a Thursday night, once every.
Once a quarter. The next one
Times
is
a year.
on April 19th.
We will jump on board.
You're so gracious.
But I'm gonna be solo on that now.
No, because probably Peter will.
Yeah,
do it.
you two used to do it with
And-
Peter,
yeah.
or, and now you're not doing it, correct? Or
No, I am still doing
you're
it.
still doing it?
Because it's outside of my time
Right.
that I.
Well, that's what I wanted to be clear
Yeah.
on.
But I don't think there was a contract yet for that, right? I think that's
There's
one
not,
of the
that still needs to be.
outstanding things that needs to be
It's one of the, yes.
close the loop on that.
That's correct.
Now it's your job to close the loop.
No, it's actually in process. Okay, so once again,
Well, that's what I was trying to understand
But
before.
we have a draft of that contract.
oh yeah.
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 No,
It
no,
just,
no.
it needs to be
It just
finalized.
But
needs
it
to be
hasn't been
finalized and
Okay.
And so, no, I mean, I wouldn't mind going to those meetings as well when I can. I'm just not always, I have
No problem.
other commitments on Thursday night.
you're going to Rescue Inc., right?
Yep.
How
But
often is that?
That's it's about, I think it's once a quarter.
You're on the board as a town representative.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm date-wise, I think that's Tuesdays.
So
I
Monday,
think it's-
Tuesday, and
No, it
Thursday.
can't be Tuesday. I've got to look at that, but
Um,
it should be okay.
I don't think we need a motion for that. I think we just
Mhm.
show up, right?
Right.
Do that. So, all right, great.
Terrific.
Moving right along.
VTrans Annual Financial Plan. Peter.
So last week, Sheila and Dan and I met with Megan Brook and Mark Pickering from our local VTrans office to review our annual financial plan and to figure out what our base is for any emergency declarations with the minimum amount of damage that has to be done in order for the town to qualify for reimbursement from the state and FEMA.
Can we just have like a 2-sentence explanation? Because there are a lot of people here who don't know what we're talking
Shall I
about.
try this?
Go for
Or
it if you want to.
Are you comfortable?
Go for it if you want to. I
Okay,
can-
because I'm not sure I get it, so let me try this and then we can. So the highway has a budget, and it's a summer budget and a winter budget. And the state comes and they look at the non-winter budget and they say, if there's a disaster, your non-winter budget in this situation is $308,557.35. Therefore, if there is a state or a federal emergency, and if you sustain damage in the amount of, or in excess of the amount of $30,855.74, you will be eligible for reimbursement by the state or FEMA. And this is an exercise that they go through every year to look at our highway budget and say, take out the winter funds, what's the rest of your roads maintenance, and then how much damage do you have to sustain in an emergency in order to get the reimbursement from the state.
Which is for their budget. I mean, they need it for
Yeah,
their budget.
they need it for their budget.
purposes, yeah.
So every year they go through this exercise and they ask us to certify that funds raised by municipal taxes are equivalent to or greater than a sum of at least $300 per mile for each mile of class 1, 2, and 3 town highway.
And they estimated that our, she didn't write it on the document, but they estimated ours is just over $1,400 per mile is what we raise currently.
Didn't know that, didn't remember that. So,
Nice work, Sheila.
does everybody get it?
Yeah.
And this reimbursement's on 100% of the damage, right?
That is 100%.
We get 100%
Yeah.
of the damage back if we
If,
get
yes,
Over that,
fairly
over
declared
that.
and more than 300 and some odd $1,000.
yeah.
No, if it's over
30,000.
30,000.
30,000.
Our damage is $30,000. So 4 culverts out or a bridge out, we're covered.
So the two things that have to happen is our damages have to exceed that amount, and a federal and state disaster has to be declared. And obviously, for a federal disaster to be declared, the state has to declare one and then apply to the federal government for a disaster declaration. So for example, the rainstorm that we had in October, unfortunately, we didn't sustain enough. We were about $3,000 short of our minimum amount in order to get reimbursed for that, but many other towns, when that disaster was declared, got reimbursement for that.
So does this require action from us?
Yes,
It
we have
does.
to adopt it. But hey, hold on 1 second, please, Miranda. Steve,
Just two quick questions. Was that the figure you used, was that roughly 10% of?
it is 10%
Exactly
of the
10%.
non-winter budget.
If you incur more than 10%, you get 100% of the 90% reimbursed, right? Yes, is the answer.
Rhetorical question.
And is it multiple times? In other words, if it happens,
It's per disaster.
okay, so
So we could have 3 rainstorms in which we receive, 5 inches of rain each time, and one washes out Carpenter Hill and another one washes out Cemetery Hill, and, the bridge over,
Troubled
Weatherhead
water.
Hollow goes out, we'd get reimbursed for all of them.
Thank you.
So I would like to acknowledge that we have somebody here in the audience with a lot more experience on this than us, which is Dick Clark. So I don't know if you have anything to say about this, Dick.
Yes, we got, the ice storm in '08, we got money for that. The flood in '05, we got money for that. The windstorm in '05, we got money for that. I don't know how much, but I mean, the amount of damage was beyond the threshold so yes, if any disaster that goes beyond that threshold, whether it be 1 or a dozen, we get reimbursed for it.
Thank you.
Well, it's great to have your experience.
The other thing that happened at this meeting is that they talked to us at the same time about better roads grants and pre-hazard mitigation grants. So we just sort of reviewed with them other grants that the town might be eligible for should we be in a position to apply for them. And so we actually wrote down a couple that we will talk to the board about at a different, later date.
Correct.
So we need a motion to,
So there's actually 3 different documents there.
3 different documents. Okay,
Nope, sorry, just the 2, sorry.
we need a motion to assign the certification of compliance for town road and bridge standards and network inventory, and the annual financial plan for the town highways.
I move so.
Do we have to do 2 separate motions?
I don't think so.
Okay. I'll second it.
Thank you, Miranda. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hang on a moment, everybody.
And if all of you could sign that, please.
Madam Chair, do you mind if I change the camera battery?
Go right ahead.
So we'll just acknowledge
Well, I'll take a break.
that I'm shutting off the camera for about 30
Yes,
seconds.
that's fine, thank you. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Flood and Fluvial Erosion Hazard Ordinance Special Vote. And we were going to announce the voting location, the date and time, in response to the petition that was submitted by more than 5% of the registered voters in Guilford and the petition read, shall the voters of the town of Guilford disapprove the Flood and Fluvial Erosion Hazard Ordinance bylaw adopted by the Guilford Selectboard on February 22nd, 2018. That was in short. However, since we have had some discussions among us and done some due diligence and some investigations, we are considering instead repealing the vote that the Select Board took on February 26th and thereby satisfying the petitioners, and then bringing the flood and fluvial erosion hazard ordinance to a vote on on the November ballot, at which point we also are electing justice of the peace and doing a regular election. This would save the town money, because we would not have to have a special vote, and it would allow us, instead of doing it in 60 days, it would allow us from now through November, whatever the election date is in November, to entertain more of public opinion, to provide more information, to allow Steve more time, basically just to give the town more time to be informed. So I think what is on the agenda tonight is this special vote. But I think if the select board moves to repeal the vote, that we then no longer need to discuss that tonight, and we can discuss it in due course over the next April, May, June, July, August, September, October, 7 months.
And then have the vote.
And then vote, and that whole town would vote, and it is
Yeah,
a
right. No, I get
non-binding
it.
vote, but we would, because in fact, it's a non-binding vote, but the select board would be informed by that vote. So, Richard, you have a...
So before the vote takes place amongst the select board, I would like to enumerate why, I would like to articulate why we are rescinding.
Repealing the vote, yeah.
vote. So, in other words, I'd like to see 1, 2, 3, 4. That's why we're doing this, and I'd like that to be reflected in the minutes.
Anybody like to
So
make a comment on why we are repealing the vote?
Also, I mean, I think because of the public input that we've gotten since we voted is a big part. I think B, if we're gonna go to a special vote, I'd rather do it all at once to save the taxpayers' money and to save Penny and Pete and the whole town office from doing a special vote, taking a day or two out of their lives to do it. I think there were some comments made that it felt rushed. I know the select board, if you've been following the select board, it's been pending for over 1.5 years. So, in that sense, it might not have been time-wise rushed, but I think there was a sense in the community that it felt rushed. And so to satisfy that feeling, it now gives people another 7-8 months to discuss it, to get information, and then to bring it to a town vote.
Perfectly articulated,
Thank
in my
you, Kevin.
opinion.
I mean, I think that communications piece, the last item that you mentioned, is really important. That the reason that the select board would repeal this vote is that to facilitate more intra-town communication.
Because this is the most people we've gotten, I'd say, my 3 years. And I was coming to the select board before I was actually on the board for another 1.5 years. And I'll say, in the past 3 years, this is the largest group we've ever had.
Yeah, and I wanted to add that almost twice as many signatures than were necessary for bringing it to a vote were collected, and that shows that if we had a good idea, it was, a broadly valuable idea, we were not able to communicate that adequately to the majority of the people.
And
Or
another
to-
reason for the repeal is that if we don't repeal it, then there has to be a special election within 60 days.
That's what
Special vote
Gabby
within
said.
60 days, yeah.
Right, but I really think engaging the community and getting the information out there,
Absolutely.
because I'm still hearing some sort of not quite accurate information, or people are worried about things that are actually taken care of in the bylaw. So I think facilitating communication is, to me, what's the most important thing that I was actually going to say the select board needs to now have a plan to do.
Right.
Which
that's
includes
another-
articulating the 2007 bylaw, which a previous select board voted for unanimously.
But that is not on the agenda tonight. Well, that would be on a different...
Nope.
Yeah.
The agenda, the issue tonight is the special vote.
Yeah.
So, do I have a motion to repeal the Select Board vote on the flood and fluvial erosion hazard ordinance of February 26, 2018.
I will so move.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So thanks for coming. If you want to stay for the rest of our fascinating meeting, we have a really
There's more
thrill-packed
fascination to
agenda.
come.
Don.
I believe that to reverse a previous action, the correct term is rescind, but you may know something.
So we
I did say
You're
rescind.
repealing the bylaw, I suppose, but you're rescinding your previous action, and
Well-
according to Robert's rules, I think that would be the usual
Thank you.
term.
I looked at state statute as well as contacted
Yeah.
VLCT because they had already passed the ordinance.
You're repealing the ordinance.
They're
Okay.
repealing the ordinance. They are not repealing their decision, they're repealing the ordinance.
Okay.
Thanks for your diligence,
I've worried
Don.
about it all night.
Yeah. Well, we're very worried about that, so I'm glad we got that taken
Is
care
that
of.
why you came?
Charlie?
So it's my understanding that in November, this will be on the ballot?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I can't see you.
So as far as
Do you
getting
want to
more,
identify yourself?
my name is
just for
Melissa Labounty and I
studio
live,
audience here.
I live in Algiers
Yeah.
and I border what's considered a flood area, even though I'm on the hill. I just want to know as far as getting more information about what's involved in this as a member of the public. Is there a specific place that we can go or do we need to?
You're sitting next to,
So there are
so I need to get in
two
touch
things
with
to say. First of all, Steve Lemke, the floodplain administrator, is our great authority. Secondly, the ordinance itself is on www.guilfordvermont.net, vt.net, thank you, on the town's website. And it is also still posted around town on the Green River Covered Bridge, at the Guilford Country Store, in the town office, and
At the
at the
Grange
Grange.
and at the library.
And at the library. So there are 5 places where you can go and get all 37 pages of it and read right through the whole thing. And then stay tuned to Front Porch Forum and the Select Board agenda and the Guilford website to see if it's on the agenda in the next. It will be on the agenda over the next several months, and where to get information, and will there be a public hearing, and read the reformer and the comments, and we put it out there. This started with 461 postcards to 461 addresses in town.
And we will be developing a communications
Yeah,
plan
we
for
will.
this. So
But that is not
there
on
will
the
be a
agenda
communications
tonight.
plan, right?
Yeah.
It's not on the agenda tonight, but it will be developed.
1 minute.
But in the interim, my town email address and my telephone number are on the website, are on the town website.
Right.
And I encourage people, I don't know how you do it, contact me as a group, but individually, if you have a particular question, give me a call. I'll walk you through how to look at your property on a map and tell you whether you're in or out of any special flood hazard area in town.
Okay, thank you.
You can't beat that.
I'm sorry.
Lynn Toby, I'm just curious, Steve, you mentioned you don't know how you would be available to, like a group. Would you be willing to hold some sort of informational evening sometime
Yeah,
along?
That's going to be part of the
certainly.
communications plan.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, we have in the past, we will in the future, no question about that. What I meant is,
But
not that I'm not willing to talk to a group. If there were 6 people that wanted to get together and talk, sure, let me know. But most of the time I get calls individually about people's individual properties. Most people call up and say, I live here, am I in or out, and what does that mean? And what I'm saying is that we'd be happy to do that, but there will be more informational group meetings.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to have the information out to the whole town.
Yeah.
Not even just people that may be concerned, but everybody needs to
Well,
know
you know that we
about
did
this.
have a town-wide informational meeting.
Actually,
We did.
I didn't, but
Oh.
that's probably of no one's fault but my own.
Oh,
It was
no.
widely
No.
promoted.
So, okay, so communication plan to be forthcoming.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
Madam
Sorry, Peter.
The other thing is that all residents, if you wish, you legally have the right to come to the town office to request a hard copy of the ordinance. And you can come during regular business hours, Monday through Thursday. Mondays is 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. and Thursdays is 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. So if you don't have a printer, if you don't have time to stop at one of the 5 locations, you can come by here and get one yourself to take home and read.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ellie.
But having just said that, Peter, do know that we are closed tomorrow
Yeah.
And Wednesday.
And Wednesday.
Right.
of this week.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, this is Ian Keel, BCTV cameraman. If I could just pitch to the crowd, BCTV records the meeting. Part of what we have to do is we take the agenda and we put a timestamp on it. So if you go online to watch the video, you can actually call up the agenda and watch only the part of the meeting you want to watch. So if you do want to review things, or if you want to watch specific things, you don't have to watch the entire meeting. And
But it is entertaining.
Oh, okay.
There's another question.
I'm sorry, Lynn?
Yeah, I'd like to clarify, so I appreciate that you took into consideration for all the folks here. But I want to clarify for myself, in November, when we go to vote, and this is on the ballot, if the majority votes either for or against it, what is the clear understanding? Will that be the final vote? Or I just want to know where that stands.
So the way that it works, so this has 2 parts to it. One is being adopted, it had been previously adopted as an ordinance. The other portion of it is that because it is related to flood and fluvial erosion hazards, that state law mandates that only the select board can adopt a flood and fluvial erosion ordinance. And so, just hypothetically speaking, if in November a majority of the town residents who come to vote say yes, that is a non-binding vote. That would indicate to the select board that they have general opinion from the voters of the town to go ahead and then re-adopt it. If voters say no, it's dead. It's not going any further. So voters only with a vote like this, and I reviewed state law extensively today, as well as contacted the attorney at Vermont League of Cities and Towns. So voters cannot, because it's related to flood and fluvial erosion, voters cannot approve it into law, but they can disprove it. So does that make sense?
But aren't there still sort of state regulations and guidelines that we have to observe?
Well, we have the 2007.
Right.
So that's another, so,
okay.
We answered Lynn's question.
Well, if there's information that the community needs, the discussion could go on, but yes, that's what my question was.
Thank you. Then I think we are done with that vote, that issue, and the next item on the agenda is the town office renovation. Should we give everybody a minute to leave if you're gonna?
Oh, don't you want to stay for the town office renovation?
School board meeting, you know, when there's a hot topic, they all come.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Read the agendas and come more often.
And watch us on TV.
And watch us on TV.
Richard and Gordon, here's a paper copy if we
Oh,
received
great,
earlier.
thank you.
Oh, great, okay.
had that.
I think I could see
I
it
made
better.
a copy.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate you having me.
Same thing.
I need it to be a little enlarged.
Oh, I got mine.
Actually, Peter, let me.
No, I've got it
The
right here in
second
front
page,
of me.
I don't have.
That's this one, right? Okay.
Oh, you did the whole thing.
I did.
I just did the cover. Thank you. Yep. That's even better.
So, for more than a year?
Yes.
Actually, I'm just gonna start back. Dick Clark, do you remember the first time the ice dam, the roof had an ice dam?
The estimate?
No, the ice dam, the first time the
Oh,
roof
yes,
had.
I very well remember that, yeah.
And do you remember what year it was? 2013, 14?
2 years ago.
Oh no, longer than that, because it was 2015 that I was up in the attic with Ron Laker putting insulation around the pipe. So we've been working on figuring out what to do with the town office renovations for at least 3 years, maybe longer. And once again, just with the flood, it's been a long process. And we have some draft plans that take care of, I don't even know how to start talking about this, that take care of our ADA accessibility, the fact that the sewer and the leach field have failed, the fact that the bathroom is a disaster area, and the fact that we have an aged envelope, insulation, heating system, electrical system, wiring, and roof. So we went to work a year ago, approximately,
Yes,
getting
a little bit more than that.
bids from different architects on town office renovations, and have selected an architect, Greenberg Architects, and a construction firm, GPI. And the select board has
Just to be clear, we contracted GPI solely for a cost estimate as a CM.
right, construction manager, yeah.
And it was all put out to bid.
And it was all put out to bid. And we've been through lots of presentations at different select board meetings by the architects and different construction management firms. And we have had proposals for the base construction cost and proposals for different alternates. And the thing that you're looking at, Gabby, made me crazy, the yellow line thing, because I could not figure out how it would work out. So Peter and I spent some time last week going through this, which is the base, what would be the base total, and then different options that we could choose regarding vinyl, a heat pump, different sidings, different areas of the building to be sided, and then some optional things like regrading and either half ADA sidewalk and stairs or the whole thing, and then part paving of the parking lot. So,
What is our purpose tonight?
the purpose tonight is to get to an agreement on what we want to do, so that you and Gabby can then look at the source of funds and say, that's feasible, you and Gabby and Peter, or we can't. We have to do something different. So we have to look at what we would like and where we think we need to come down in terms of the use of funds, and then go back and look at it and see if we can actually do that. And that is the next meeting, April 9th. So, Gabby.
I mean, I feel like I'm not sure where we are as far as schedule and design, because the last I checked, we were in design development, and I thought that we hadn't picked a final design yet, but we're talking about cost, so I'm a little bit confused about where we are in the process itself.
So it's a little hard, I think, to pick, are you talking about final interior design?
Anything. I thought that we picked something to sort of get a cost estimate to get a ballpark. That's, where I thought we were, and when I look at the bills, we're at 50% design development,
yeah.
I believe. So, nothing's been, as far as a schematic, nothing's been presented to the town, and I don't know what the plan is to present to the town. So, I guess I'm wondering what design, we're starting to talk about costs and alternate, like pretty specific things, like whether we're going to put closet storage below the stairs and alternate HVAC and things like that, but I'm not even sure, at least personally, what the design we're talking about is, or if we settled on a design.
So in a couple of the workshops, we went through the designs and came up with agreements on everything but
The closet under the stairs,
no. We agreed on a plan, an interior plan, with the exception of the fact that the listers asked for a door.
So when you say we agreed, it was
when we were talking in the workshops about how we would proceed. This was the final plan that was submitted to the select board.
Right, but I thought we just sort of picked one out of two plans just for cost. That's what was represented to me. So we haven't had any, when we say we made decisions during workshops, that makes me a little nervous, because you can't make decisions during workshops.
We gave guidelines, to the architect, saying, this works, this doesn't,
So is the
And
decision
everything
been
was-
made that we're going with this design? I guess that's where I'm trying to figure out what we're looking at and what we're trying to accomplish.
So I think you can't make a decision on this design until we decide on the alternates. And then we can say, okay, that's the design we want to go with. But if we don't, we've got too many options. I don't know why they called them alternates, actually, because we have too many options. So the design, the structure is one thing, but then we get into the options with what are you gonna do about the paving, what are you gonna do about the HVAC, what are you gonna do about the siding, are you gonna side everything, are you gonna side a little bit? So, it seems to me that you can't make a decision and get to a final cost estimate without reviewing all of those things and then saying, okay, this, and this. So I think that's the purpose of tonight.
So, I mean, I guess I'm trying, are we going with this, what design are we going with? Because I don't think the HVAC will determine if we're gonna do an addition on a building.
Well, since,
I mean, that's what I'm
why don't we
trying to
back
figure
up to
out.
that meeting, since that meeting where this,
you wanna-
the schematics or whatever were discussed, feedback from everyone staff-wise in the town office, and then the members of the select board that were there to discuss them, has there been any changes since then, or any
No.
alterations? So is that the general, that's what this is just the general
The general
schematic
take
that
on-
was written up for that meeting, basically, in 2 forms?
So,
Right, but we also talked about having options for phasing and things of that nature, and I was sort of assured that that's what was going on, but again, I guess I'm trying to figure out where we are in the process and what we're trying to do, and what our schedule is.
so we have a base total of 228,000. We need to decide what, and that pretty much constitutes much of this last plan, the last iteration of the plan that was submitted post a number of discussions with the architects during select board meetings, during workshops, and with the people who use this office the most, the employees in this office. So this is the last iteration. This has been in the folder, the town office renovation folder for, it says February 27th, but that's because he put in the door, right?
That's
Since
correct.
then, so
And
since
remove the closet at the select board.
and remove the closet. So, and we have said under $225,000. So they did it at 228. But then there are all these other decisions to make. So I think the purpose of this meeting is to understand the impact of the various designs and the design options that they gave us, and to say this is where we want to go. Do we have the funds to do this? Is there, I mean, that seemed pretty clear to,
No, I think that was my understanding, looking at this piece of paper. I mean, this is what the general interior would look like, correct?
Well, I guess that's my question. Have we decided that that's that we're going with this?
I don't think it's formal, has it formally been
No, and that's my
decided by the select
question.
board?
That's my question. Have we where are we? This is not.
Well, maybe we should formally
What's our
decide
schedule on
that
how, right,
right
what are we
now.
going with, and how are we involving the public? And what's our schedule and what's our plan? I mean, I haven't seen anything like this presented. It just sort of pops up and goes away.
Gotcha.
And like, we haven't talked about this for months, so I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out where we're headed and what we're trying to get done.
I thought we were trying to put something down on paper with numbers on it to present to the public, to communicate. This building needs to become ADA compliant. These basic things, even though it's not basic at $228,000, but these things have to be done to ensure the stability of the building, the efficiency of the building, the habitat for the workers that work here, our employees. So that's where my general understanding of
and
this
the
discussion
long-term
was.
viability.
And the long-term
of
viability of the building to be here for a period of time.
And the way in which the
But-
public and the employees use it.
But what I was envisioning was, when I was talking about phasing, like, maybe we don't have to have an addition. Maybe one of our options is renovating the interior and doing you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about. I was envisioning sort of options, as far as we have this option at this price point. We have this option, and here's what the costs and benefits are, and here's option, I don't know. Maybe we just have 2 options, maybe we have 3 options,
Right.
but that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying, is there a way to phase? Are there different ways of going about this? Is this the only design?
And I think what I understood from the communications I've read and watched is, with this basic design, these are our feasibility pieces that they've come up with, that are written out under these different options. Is that
Yeah.
incorrect? or
No,
is
no,
that-
you're right.
I mean,
Gabby's
so
also
that's
right.
all the architect
That's
came
not
back.
a phase, that's the alternate. You know what I'm saying?
I understand, but I think this question was asked, wasn't it?
We did, we asked actually at many, as late as 2 weeks ago, is there any benefit to phasing in or staging different things? And they said no. In other words, if we're gonna you know, we have to do the bathroom, we're not gonna just make a wider doorway into the bathroom right now and leave everything else like it is.
Right, of course not, but I just
So
feel
that-
like that I'm not sure.
No, say
I mean, I'm just not sure that, you know, having an addition is something that we necessarily have to have, and they couldn't rearrange things to make it ADA compliant and better flow. I guess that's what I'm
But I
driving
think
at.
what they came back, my understanding, and it's limited, I'm sure, is that the additional piece was the lavatory, and the HVAC was part of that, correct? Or if we did upgrade, you know, whatever
Well,
that.
the HVAC is a big issue,
Well,
actually, but
The
yeah,
new,
the
whatever we
boiler,
did heating-wise is part of that. So
Yeah.
from their perspective, it didn't make sense to phase that addition in after the fact because it's such an integral part of the entire process.
Right, I guess I'm asking, do we need the addition? Like, I don't want to go to, you know, I don't feel comfortable going to the town and being like, here's what we want. We didn't look into something that was less cost. I mean, my question would be, why do we need the addition? For
So-
example.
I don't know why you didn't ask that question during any of the architectural
I think I
presentations.
did actually. Well, I wasn't
At
at any workshops because I
No, but
can't go to them.
These were
So
presented at, you know, at the
not at
meetings.
any one I was at.
At a
I-
select board meeting?
She
No,
missed
no,
a
it was
couple of meetings in
meetings with the
October,
design,
yeah.
with the architect.
I don't know, but,
And that's why I kept asking about phasing, and we were
yeah, and we
having
did too,
questions
but we
about
asked it in a different way because I think the four of us that were here felt that this addition is necessary.
Well, based on the feedback from the architect.
Yeah.
And was it
We
one of
agreed
the
with the
questions
recommendations.
that, in the letter that you asked questions and we got answers? Was that a question? I can't remember.
No, not about whether or not we needed an addition. I mean, I think that that was the plan that we accepted when we accepted the architect, was this basic
Basically,
plan.
that was the
And then
draft, yes.
in the interiors, we changed a fair amount based on discussions with employees and with the staff and looking at configurations and also seeing how much we could contribute to this without raising more costs. But
May I
once,
speak?
sorry,
I was just requesting permission.
yes.
Just for informational purposes, at the 8th of January Select Board meeting, the four draft schemes from the architect were presented to the Select Board, and at that time, the Select Board informally, there was no motion, but the Select Board informally agreed that this scheme was the one that was going to be moved forward with.
Right, and I'm going to argue with your interpretation of that. It was, we have to pick one today to go to a cost estimate to get a magnitude of, that's how I understood it, to get a magnitude of order. This was not the final design. So if I'd been told that at the meeting, I would have said, is this the final design? What are we doing? So I guess that was my understanding of what we were going about doing.
So Gabby, I feel like we got to this stage in January and then it took us a long time to get numbers from them about what this would be. And that now we have the numbers in an understandable format for the design that we informally accepted.
I understand. But what I'm saying is I'm uncomfortable going to a town and saying, we looked at one design.
Well, actually, we looked at four
four
designs.
But they were the same thing. You were telling me just to revise the interior.
So would you have us go back to the architects and say something else? I'm sorry, I feel like we're going in circles here.
I mean, if you're telling me this is the design, we have no choice, then that is what it is.
Are you,
but if you're
are you
telling,
objecting to the design?
I don't have any feeling about the design, except I think we need to, it's our duty to investigate all our potential options and present that to the town. If we're gonna say, hey, we would need $300,000, this is why it's the best use of our money.
Well, I think from, my limited.
I mean, but if you're telling me this is how we're going.
Well, it's not, I don't think we're telling you that. I think what the architect is suggesting, based on the structure, the financial constraints that we presented, and taking all that into account, they've increased an addition of 1,260 square feet to house the mechanical, the bathroom, and a new office for the TA. That's the extent of the addition. It's not, it's 1,260 square feet. That allows this room to become, actually, this allows, they talked about having 2 spaces,
Yeah,
correct?
2
Peter?
meetings. Sorry, not yet, Richard.
So that this part would be a bigger area for meetings like this evening where we have an overflow of people, there'd be more room for them, and then a separate meeting area for the commissions if there's multiple things going on.
Yeah.
So it wasn't to expand the, footprint, in my opinion, extravagantly. I mean, it was a very conservative thought process.
And I think some of the planning was looking at how much more usage the building has, how much more usage it has now than it was when it was built, and projecting how much more work might have to go on in this building 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and that this small increase in space would put us in a better position to accommodate that increase of use.
But your concern is with process, not with content, that's what I'm gathering.
I mean, it's a combination of both. Is I want to make sure that we've done our due diligence and we have the say, okay, we looked at, here's what we did. We didn't just say, okay, here's the one drawing and not ask questions about.
Well, it seems to me,
cost,
however, that we did. I mean, I was
If you
here with
think
the
we did, then
architects. I
that's
know, I
fine.
was here with the architects. We had lots of conversations in those workshops. The architects were here at least twice, as I recall, and we asked questions, they answered the questions. So there was a lot of back and forth. And I think that that's what led into the informal thought that we would take that draft design.
Yes, so I agree, we got to the point of having a draft design and then figures that we couldn't figure out what we were gonna give you to say, is this gonna work? And so that's why we sat and worked to come up with these. And my goal for this evening's discussion was to be, given this drawing, what should we do with these options? And then say, okay, is this something that you can work with? Is it feasible within our financial constraints? And to have this discussion open tonight to the public and then April 9th to the public as well. So, I mean, these discussions have been open to the public every time, but just, so I think it makes sense for us to go through, to say this is where we are. If we decide that we can't have a 1,200-foot addition and we need to go back
I'm just using that as an example.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just using that as an example because it's easy to just pick off.
So,
but I think it should also be made clear that if we were voting on, if we were going with something, it should have been made clear that's what we were doing.
But
I don't think if we were saying this is our design, or even just said
did.
if this is our design and we're going for it,
But
I
we
think
didn't
that
say-
would have been good to be clear too.
I don't think anyone ever said, this is the design, this is what we're gonna do. I think that, this was the design that was the most favorable design, and then they were gonna attach numbers to it, was my
yeah,
understanding.
and then we're gonna see if it makes sense and if we can do it. I mean, they say they wanna start on June 11th, but I don't know that we're in a position to get there yet. But that's why I've been pushing for the capital needs assessment, for the understanding of the funds, for understanding these the budget options, the alternate options, to see if we can get these figures so we can get our head around something more than a picture. What is it going to cost? How is it going to be done? What is essential and what can we do without? Or do we have to do with everything?
So in some ways, it remains a hypothetical design because we're costing out what in this particular draft is affordable.
Well, and also we're responding to the insights of the people who work in the building, who, not that they have a say in our budgeting for the building, but they know what it's like to work here and maybe are in a better position to project what might happen soon and later. But I also appreciate what you're saying, Gabby, and I wish that we had had you at all of these meetings.
So can we,
Go ahead. Question.
Well, I was just, am I allowed to ask a question or make a comment or not?
if it's very brief, because it's not time for the public to comment yet, but
Oh,
yes.
then I'll wait till it's time.
Okay, thank you. So I think what we should be doing is looking at the additions, this sheet here that Peter prepared for us. Which division, oh God, did you do this? Okay, so 1 through 16 is,
You asked me to remove.
yeah, I know, I'm just saying. Okay, so this 228,000 is for basic stuff. Preliminary, general, site work and demo, concrete work, wood and plastic, thermal and moisture protection, and all of this is in this, the breakdown line by line. Doors and windows, finishes, specialties, mechanical, the basic mechanical, electrical, the construction subtotal, the estimating contingency, and then the contract management fee, for a base total of 228,000.
And that's just hard, that's hard costs.
No, it's not hard costs only because it has the estimating contingency in there of 20,000. So,
Right, that's a contingency for the hard costs, the estimating
Right,
contingency.
yeah.
So these are the I just want to be clear, these are the hard costs.
right.
These aren't the permitting fees, these are just literally the building fees.
It doesn't
costs.
excludes typical owner costs such as the property itself, abatement of hazardous materials, mold remediation, legal and administrative, financing, clerk of the works, owner's rep, architect and engineering fees, moving costs, utility company charges, permits, testings, furnishings, window treatments unless as listed, owner provided equipment, property insurance, owner construction contingency, performance and payment bond. So it excludes those things which we estimate are not considerable.
And it includes no owner's contingency, right?
Does not include an owner's construction contingency either, yeah. So that is on this sheet here, the first page, the exclusions.
Right, but I just want to be clear what we're talking about
Yeah.
when you say $228,000.
These are the hard costs.
Hard costs.
If we go to thermal and moisture protection, okay, if we were to only insulate the town clerk portion of the office and do vinyl siding so that we can do the insulation efficiently, we would add an additional $2,886. If instead we were to do vinyl and insulation for the entire building, it would be $12,000 additional, $12,217, or $14,000 for hemlock and insulating the entire building. That's how this spreadsheet is figured out. And then specialties, if we were to do I'm not going to get into all of this, but the HVAC system of $60,000 instead of redoing the furnace.
No, it's not instead of redoing.
Oh, and also redoing the furnace.
Yes.
So,
That's for a heat pump system
okay.
with air conditioning for the entire building.
So the HVAC here, the 7,325 is not really HVAC because there's no AC or anything like that, right? It's just
That's to convert
That's the heat pump.
No, so if looking on the far left hand side where it says the mechanical HVAC 7325 and then plumbing 6300. You see what I'm?
Yeah.
So 13,125.
So that HVAC cost is to convert our existing kerosene furnace over to an oil furnace. And then the plumbing is to reroute the plumbing for the boiler for the building into the new section.
And how old is our furnace?
I believe it's 14 years old.
That's what I thought.
we just heard from Franklin that it needs a major overhaul, right?
Yeah, they said either major overhaul or
Or
replacement.
replacement, yeah,
Oh, from Dennis?
yeah.
Okay.
Actually from Michael, but yes.
No, I mean that
Yes, from
company.
That's Franklin.
So,
But again, we'd own that, and then we're just converting it from kerosene to oil.
right,
At
and the big
$14,000.
ticket item here is the $60,000 for
A new,
a heat pump
Yep, heat pump and air conditioning, that is.
and air
associated.
conditioning, that would, you ever get a cost ben, a,
It would reduce,
Efficiency benefit.
yeah, like the, what
It's not
payoff?
gonna be much.
No, over 10 years or over
Oh.
12 years or something like that, you get to zero or, a lot less in.
Oh, when it pays for itself?
Yes.
yeah.
I know that.
Yeah, no, John Penning was supposed to give us those numbers.
he commented on it, he basically said the electric would stay unchanged.
This electric would stay unchanged.
And the oil would decrease in usage, and it was a major drop.
Yeah, he said it was
like
like $75 per year.
per year,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
How much do we pay now? Do we
And
know?
That gets to your point that now we're paying,
Just over 4,000 a year.
I was gonna say,
So there's a big difference,
3,800 or
4,075.
And I believe John estimated, he didn't get back with hard numbers, he estimated approximately 11 years for the payoff for the heat pump system. But he said that's at current oil prices. He said if oil prices change, he
Right.
said that would be different, and it could be different in either direction because we don't know the oil market.
So the heat pump uses oil?
No, it doesn't.
It uses electricity
to power itself, yes.
to power itself? No, I mean, that was my understanding. I'm not an expert on all of these, but I have been trying to educate myself on it.
So one of the things one of the efficiencies that we as a town, as a municipal building cannot realize is that we need to have a backup furnace. So we would still have to pay that $73.25, even if we went to this more energy efficient HVAC system. I know, I was astonished.
Why?
Because if temperature goes below 10 degrees, a heat pump is inefficient to
Right.
heat the building.
You still need a backup.
So you have to have a
You
backup.
have to still.
So that's
have you had a generator? It doesn't matter. Still
It just
gotta create
can't,
the
it
heat.
can't pump the heat fast
Yeah.
enough, so I know like with places when it was negative 20 for overnight for a couple
Yep,
weeks,
recently, right?
it just can't. They've gotten so much better in the past couple of years, but
They're still-
once
Yeah.
it starts
Not
going
good
down
enough.
below.
Yeah, John
Just
said they can, the coldest they can efficiently work at before backup heat kicks in is roughly -5 degrees.
Gotcha.
He said they have seen a couple of systems that have kicked in at -10, but he said -5 is the coldest they've seen, where it's consistent.
And can they plumb for this in construction and just not put the system in so that at a future
I
date
don't
we
know the
could
answer
put?
to that. I don't know the answer to that.
Can't be that. You have any experience for that?
Not retrofitting.
Well,
I mean, I've had them, I've worked on having them installed. You'd have to ask whether
So that would
it
be a
makes sense
question to ask.
to do it now.
I'm sorry, Gabby, I didn't understand what you just said.
I've installed them, but I haven't looked at sort of like just putting the piping in.
Oh,
and
I
then
see.
for-
Okay.
For a future time.
So it's pretty extensive
Yeah.
piping.
No, it's very.
It is,
I mean,
it'll go
just-
through the whole place.
Yeah.
I mean, because it'll be vents.
Because it would be,
Yeah.
so that means, I'm just guessing that it would be much more expensive to do it
Probably.
post-construction
Yeah.
than pre or during.
And Joe also wanted to note, so the 60,168 came from the mechanical engineer, and Joe did note
Thought
that
it's high.
this amount he thought was high, because this is the amount that was quoted by
I
the
read
sales
that.
representative, and this was not the exact amount
Unit
for
revenue.
purchasing the unit as well as the installation.
So, but
It's to
he
give a
had-
rough idea.
So
Right.
he still, this is like 3 or 4 weeks ago, he still has not got back to us with a firm proposal and a firm proposal and a firm payoff, whatever it's called, not payoff, but
Return on the.
Return on investment.
Investment of the.
Would we have any other low-cost option for a backup system, other than that investment in fixing the current
The
furnace?
7,000?
Yeah.
I don't know, it seems like a lot to me.
Well, that's also to move the existing furnace as well
So that's to move the furnace
and convert it to oil.
and convert it to oil. And how much do, I mean, I haven't been shopping for a furnace for a long time, and certainly not for a building like this. I mean, how much do furnaces cost?
I have no idea.
So, it's actually another important question to ask John. Because, I think if you're making a contract with an oil company, or probably the furnace is less, installing the furnace is less than retrofitting an old one, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. So, the other options are, well, we have to do the regrading the sewer and the well improvements. That's an outside thing, and then we could do half of an ADA sidewalk and stairs for the main entrance only and not this side meeting room.
And there'll still be a way to get for somebody who is a rider, let's say, to get from there to
Straight
here.
through.
Yeah.
Yep. And then half is 5,900, the whole ADA entrance here would
Right,
be
I got it.
13,000.
Why aren't those in our base? Those seems like things we have to do.
Don't remember why I got there, Gabby, with Peter.
Well, because the
architect said in one of the meetings, I thought, that by moving the ADA to one egress, I think that's why it's here, because
Because it was an option.
It was an
Yeah, it was an option
One
that they felt
50%
they
or
could do to satisfy
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the
a
select board
savings.
needs to decide which of the two, between a full,
That's my recollection.
a full entrance or the half. And it's, the current recommendation on the drawing here is done in such a way as to, should the select board in the future decide to do for the whole building, that it would be less expensive doing it this way. So it could be phased in the future if you wish, or a future select board wishes.
I mean, that to me makes sense, because then we can apply for a grant through
For just that purpose.
ACCD just for that purpose.
That's correct.
What is it, Gabby?
ACCD.
Okay. For the 13,000?
So Gabby, are you
Well, it would be
saying
actually
that
for
if we didn't go with any modification for ADA accessibility in this plan, we could apply for a grant afterwards to do the entire ADA accessibility for for both entrances?
You know what I'm saying? We have to do minimum, which seems like half.
Right, okay.
And then if we did, we could do the other half at a later time and actually get some grant money for it.
Okay.
Potentially, if we.
Right.
If we could raise it, or get the grant.
And then their other suggestion was to pave the lot outside, and I don't think anybody thinks that we need to pave the lot.
No.
For $20,000. Yeah. And we have kind of eliminated any discussion of lighting outside.
You mean of changing the lighting outside?
Yeah. They seem to be. So,
So just to be clear, an alternative here, it's talking about this ADA entrance, correct? The separate one. The 13,000
Yes, so
is just this entrance.
No,
the
the other
13,000 is is both
100%.
entrances.
Oh,
It's
okay.
100% to make the entire
Both of
building
them. Okay.
fully
Thank you.
ADA accessible. The half entrance is the town clerk side only to make that ADA accessible, which is the 5,000.
That's down here. Okay, I didn't have that on this diagram. Okay, thank you.
Because that was a request that the select board had
Right.
made at one of the meetings, and they only got that to me about a week and a half ago.
So these total numbers, not base total, the next line down, total, would be inclusive of what we need to do for the sewer and well improvements as far as the regrading. And what we need to do at a minimum for the ADA compliance, correct?
Half.
Yeah, the 246.
Yeah.
As
So that's the minimum.
228,
So
yeah.
the 246, the 309 on up is
Mhm.
what we're, okay, just one.
And the difference between that 246 and anywhere from 310 to
Yeah.
320 is the
Yep.
$60,000 HVAC
Yep.
system. Gabby, I have a question for you. Estimating contingency, is that something that is normally used, or is it?
Yeah, it's just, it's.
No, I don't, I mean, I know
Yeah.
it's always in a contract, but how often do people use those funds, do you think?
It's not, they're holding this and saying, I'm estimating this, I didn't get any hard bids yet. This is sort of, I'm just giving myself some wiggle room. So that's all that is. It should just be a percentage, usually,
Yeah.
of the total hard cost. So it's not like a contingency fund. They're saying, hey,
Okay.
I didn't get any bids back on this, so I can't even, so this is all just very rough.
Okay, so their construction total is 188.5, and their estimating contingency is 10% of that, and then their construction management fee is slightly more than 10%. Or 10% of the two. Yeah, okay, got
Of the
it.
total, because they're saying the total build is gonna be their estimate plus their contingency.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay. Discussion. So I have one thing.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to insulate the whole building, and I don't think we need to do vinyl and, or hemlock for the whole building. I think that we could just go with insulating that town clerk's office and replacing the vinyl there, because that's, what is the boards there? They're two,
So
spacing is,
this end of the building is built with 2x6s. The new proposed addition would also be built with 2x6s. The center addition was only built with 2x4s and does not have sufficient insulation in it.
and that would make,
When was this done? Again, this part?
This was done in 1997. The original
97.
portion was done in 1971.
so when we look at insulation, we are looking at what was mandated, what was voted on at town meeting, which is to do more energy efficiency, and also,
And greener.
and also it would, over the long run, reduce our energy consumption costs if we were to do that, but I really don't think we need to go with hemlock or vinyl siding for the entire building. We're not looking at
So,
insulating.
if I may speak, one point that was agreed upon between the mechanical engineer, the architect, and the construction manager is that if the select board decides not to do insulation and siding on the entire building, that it would not be worth it to install the heat pump because of the current situation with our insulation, is there would be a net energy loss with the situation the way it is right now.
I think I disagree with you, Sheila. I come from, and this is just a fundamental way that I operate, is to do it now and ensure, to insulate the whole building, to cover it with, I would prefer hemlock, I think, but whatever, I don't think the building half-ass is making a good investment for our town.
So you're.
And I would call it half-ass if you don't insulate a whole building that you have. And you're gonna put in a new heating system or refurbish an old heating system, but you don't have insulation. It just doesn't make any sense to me. We should just do this.
Is there insulation since '97 in this side? Isn't that, there is insulation in the walls, it's just not up to the same
It's not up
standard
to the same
today
standards
as it
up to date,
was
that's
back in
correct.
'97.
Because the
So just to be
standards-
clear.
Yes,
Right.
the standards in the past
Right.
21 years have changed.
Right.
And so it's not at
As-
fault of the
Right.
original builder of the
Right.
section.
No. I just want to make, there is insulation in the walls.
So they would take out the old insulation,
Yes.
blow in
Yeah.
insulation.
As well as put rigid foam on top of that.
Okay.
Is what their proposal is.
So, it's the R factor, right?
Yep.
Do they know what that is? Would be if,
He told us, and I don't remember it off the top of my head right now.
Max in your walls are 19.
I'm sorry?
Max in your walls are 19 if it's 2x6. That's probably what they put in there. Just
Oh.
fiberglass.
Would that include the rigid foam on the outside?
Oh, I thought you meant existing.
No, it's existing.
I'm sorry.
No, I was asking about,
Sorry. I'll wait till.
thank you.
No.
I'm curious about whether other select board members have shared my philosophy about the building or not.
Honestly, I think insulating the building is going to make a huge difference. And I think for the amount of, like, we're looking at a 350 to 400, 350 ballpark renovation. And, $10,000, that's something that to me pays off.
I agree. And I think and I would like us to be thinking, I'm trying to, put my perspective on you, which is that I think that building for the future and spending more money now and having less trouble later with, a cold building or a non-functioning furnace is worth our investment today.
And I think it's not just spending, it's spending money in the right places.
Yes.
How do you feel about the hemlock?
To me, have any feelings about that.
I
don't.
And it's okay for $2,000.
It's our town.
Make it
We
look
want
nice,
a town
right?
municipal building to look like we have a wonderful town here.
Which is, I don't disagree with, but does hemlock have to be addressed from a painting standpoint more frequently than
Probably.
I think
vinyl?
maintenance should definitely be.
Yeah. What did you
So
say?
what's my point,
Yes.
is you can't just say, I
It's
like
only
hemlock looking
$200,
better,
yeah.
but you've got to now maintain the hemlock.
Yeah.
So the installation to me is a no-brainer. I don't disagree with that thought process.
If I may speak,
Sure.
one point that they did say in the difference between vinyl on the entire building and the hemlock is, yes, there is maintenance for the hemlock, whether it's restaining it or repainting it. But they did also say, though, that you most likely would need to replace vinyl siding in 10 to 15 years, whereas hemlock will easily last 30 years, is what they were saying.
What do we have on here?
We have vinyl.
And it's been on for how long?
It's been here for 20 years.
21?
Yeah, and it's deteriorating. We have holes in it. And
Yeah, but that's not 10 years, Peter. That's a very different
I'm just-
discussion.
That's just what they were saying. I'm not stating
but
my
sometimes
opinion
you-
on the matter.
Yeah. No.
I've had cedar on my house for 30 years.
It's not cedar,
I
it's
know.
hemlock.
Cedar is way
That's
more
where-
Cedar is more
expensive.
But that's what I'm
expensive,
saying.
yeah.
So, you're trying to cut a corner by making it pretty with hemlock, but in all honesty,
No,
you gotta
we're not.
take, no, but all I'm saying
Maintenance,
is,
maintenance should be considered.
maintenance
because
has
you,
gotta be
I
you could do
considered.
something and then say, oh
Right.
no, now I have $10,000 a year in annual maintenance.
Exactly.
I didn't
That's
plan
all
for
I'm
that.
saying. That's all
But I
I'm
think
saying.
it should all be considered.
No, I agree, and one element that we've talked about sort of obliquely is that at town meeting, the town meeting voted for having us attend to energy efficiency and greenness. And that was fairly unanimous for the people who came to vote. And I feel that vinyl isn't, we have vinyl. If we weren't building an addition, then maybe that would be different in my mind. But it doesn't seem forward thinking to me to go with that.
So
So we're split, I think we're splitting hairs when
Well,
if
that's
you're
what
gonna
this is all
insulate.
about, is splitting hairs.
But
yeah.
the HVAC to me is a,
That's the big
you know,
thing.
that's
the
$60,000
cost is going to be
That's what I
nominal,
mean.
except for the
plus 7 or 8,000. So you're talking about $68,000 because you've got
no, that's
up,
already in the base.
I mean, I look at this list and the only real
In the
question
six-
to me is, do we want to do the heat pump?
right.
That's
So-
really the only alternate we have.
So to
right?
be clear, the
This
7 is in the 60.
13.9. No, it's
It's
these
either
are all
heat pump
pluses.
Right.
or
That's so I'm saying
Oil.
it's $68,000 to deal with our
Yeah.
heating
Or
system.
redoing the kerosene furnace to use oil. Is that
Right, which we
correct?
do no matter what.
We have
Oh
to
my
back up.
God, yeah.
Right, so we're gonna do the oil, change our boiler to oil no matter what. The issue is, do we get the heat pump with the backup oil, or do we just stick with oil?
And
Because the
other
heat pumps are gonna be
consideration,
more environmentally conscious, right?
if the heat,
Do you have an opinion?
I like heat pumps.
if
Go ahead.
Sorry, Peter.
I was just gonna say, if the heat pump is not chosen, then is the select board gonna consider some other option for cooling of the building? Because the window unit that we have, even with the door closed here and the door closed for the lister's office, doesn't even cool the center part of the building.
Yeah.
And it
It's
uses
awful.
a huge amount of electricity.
And we have one unit, right?
We have one unit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and
Right.
I'm not advocating one or the other, it's just a
No.
question.
Right, no, you're
No,
right.
that's
Yeah,
important information.
That
So,
leads to the same.
Gabby, you said 350 because you're taking into consideration architect's costs and stuff like
Well,
that?
I'm looking at it, it's gonna be 250, I'm just rounding, right, because it's all,
Yeah, it's
it's not gonna be
320.
specific anyway. Our base, really, our base is 247, so I'm just gonna call
Yeah.
it 250, right?
Yeah,
And then you have things like permits and builder's
Right.
risk, and, I mean, I actually think we need to have an owner's contingency in here. I mean, you don't usually go to construction without an owner's contingency, which would be I'd probably do 10% of the total as an owner's contingency, because God forbid they open up a wall and they find something we don't expect, where are we gonna get that money from, right? That's usually pulls out of the owner's contingency.
and then, okay,
So that jacks it up a bunch.
So
Right.
I think, so we have two major questions that would impact funding, or the numbers. One is, would it be more efficient to get a new furnace, a new backup furnace? Through,
So
you
to
know, an
either
oil contract?
get a new furnace
Or to get a
convert.
new backup furnace? I mean, which is more efficient? Because I don't understand why we would fix a furnace that's 14 years old.
That's ridiculous.
And,
And runs on kerosene.
yeah.
But it would be
It would be
converted.
converted to oil. I just don't understand the concept of a 14-year-old furnace that's on kerosene, fitting it out to, so is there,
Right.
what would the cost of a new furnace?
Yep.
And then, what's the actual cost of an HVAC system? Not.
With
Actually,
installation.
the heat pump, right?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
heat pump, not the 60,000 that the salesperson, but what are they saying, and what's the payback time?
Yep, I had that.
Okay, and then my sense is that, and we probably need to take a vote on this, that, let me just ask one more question. Hemlock the issue is maintenance?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a concern I was just raising.
because periodically you will have to either repaint it or restain it and seal it.
Which you don't have to do to vinyl. Right?
No,
That's
not
my
to my knowledge.
understanding.
I don't have vinyl.
No, vinyl either.
Okay, so vinyl or hemlock?
Hemlock.
I prefer
I'm taking,
hemlock.
I'm taking.
I prefer hemlock, but why don't we just, like, can we just call a friend and ask what that would cost to,
And how long hemlock's gonna
Yeah.
last.
Yeah.
I have when I saw hemlock, I mean, I've seen cedar, but
Well,
I
from,
wonder what kind of
I think,
fiber I have.
doesn't he address that? How long?
You have
hemlock lasts?
cedar.
I have cedar?
I have cedar.
Except for the people.
I mean, as I understand, part of the reason they were recommending hemlock is because it has a similar lifespan to cedar. The only difference between hemlock and cedar is hemlock needs to be treated in some form, either paint or stain, and cedar does not.
Mine has, well, anyway.
I mean, cedar can be, but it's not required to be.
They did not answer any questions about hemlock
I
versus
didn't see
vinyl.
that.
Okay, so now we're putting the
How long-
question, right?
How long will hemlock last?
Yes.
So
Well,
what-
how long will it last and how often does it need to be
What are the
stained?
maintenance costs?
Yeah, that's what it's just staining it, yeah.
But in terms of
Or
your
painting it.
capital needs information, $2,120 is not that material, right? So the material figures will be the 60,000 HV, or whatever the HVAC
Yes,
system is.
that's the big number.
And the furnace, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just thinking because this seems to be the hiccup in trying to move further. Can we just come up with a number to work off? Say it's not the number
I
we're
was just
gonna
going
use.
with between 350, like, just go
But
with
use that
350.
number for the numbers
That's what I think.
piece
I
as an
like that.
exercise.
That's what I
And
think.
it's, to me, it's a lot cleaner.
So I'm sort of.
Because
was
we're doing a
looking-
magnitude of order, we're just trying to see if it's.
Right, we're just trying to say, and that backs back to this, is that.
So
yeah.
you're saying 350 because of the soft cost
she
of the
just-
owner contingency?
And owner contingency.
Owner contingency,
10%.
there's other soft costs, so let's just call it 350 and use, and
use that
and
to
do a
back
magnitude.
into, right.
Exactly.
Yep. And then come up with whether we have the
that
350.
money,
Right,
if not, okay, we have
exactly.
this
Yeah.
amount, what
So
can we
that
do for
will
this
answer the
amount?
questions.
Right, so that's a very logical way of approaching it, I think.
So,
Well, I mean, I think the
for-
next page answers something. I'm sorry, Brenda.
No, please.
It does.
I'm
So what kind of information can we expect for the next meeting? I mean, I'm assuming that we're waiting for more information in order to...
Well, we'll have the answers to our questions. I think if we go with the 350 as a working number.
Plug it in as a,
Just plug it in and then go down from
Just
it if
hold it as an
necessary.
allocation.
And then
And then
get the
you
information
and-
from what Gabby and Peter and I are doing.
Okay.
Mostly Gabby, I guess. But
But you'll be very helpful.
I can be.
he's gonna have a critical eye, I know this.
So
But
that will be where's the money and how much is there?
And what can we actually present to the town, and what
Yeah.
do we feel comfortable presenting? Anything, right, you know,
Right.
what do we want to present, what do we feel comfortable presenting?
So and is the goal of presenting these numbers to the town on April 9th realistic? 2 weeks from today.
No.
What more do we need to do?
I think we need to do a capital budget and have a discussion about that.
And when are you going to have that
I
information?
mean, I think that we can do for April 9th.
But the capital budget would include this.
It will, but I don't think we'll be ready to make a proposal
But
to
it-
the
but-
town on April 9th because we won't know what we're proposing.
I just thought the town would be part of this discussion on April 9th. So, I mean,
Well, I mean, everything's gonna be part of,
how
I
do you-
mean, I guess what I envision doing, I mean, and again, I haven't seen a schedule, but I envision saying, hey, town, come see this meeting. Here's what we're gonna do with our new town hall. Yay, we wanna talk to you about it. And have poster boards and have the architects do a presentation and then have a discussion about how we came up with the plan, why it works, hear feedback, and talk about the budget and talk about what it's gonna cost to the town and how we're gonna make that work.
so it's an informational meeting for the town.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And presenting the plan. That includes the design and the capitalization.
And when do you think we can do that? Because I think we need to do that pretty soon.
I mean,
What, the following month? was it?
I mean, this wasn't, I mean, I was
Shakespeare's
really prepared to
birthday.
talk about that because I haven't seen any even schedules, so,
Well, we're making a
I mean,
Yeah, no, I mean, this is the idea. We're making the schedule.
so maybe someone can propose a schedule next meeting that has sort of, you know, when you could have a town information session after March, you know, presumably April 9th, we'll have a discussion about the capital budget. And then thereafter, have an informational meeting about presenting it to the
Maybe we
town
could do
formally.
it before in advance of the select board meeting on the 23rd. In other words, we could
Why
have
don't we
it.
just do it at the select board meeting on the 23rd
It's okay with me.
and make that the whole meeting?
Make that the
Yeah.
meeting.
Sorry, Ian.
I'll bring a camera.
You'll bring a camera.
And I think it needs to be publicized, so I think whoever's on the communications team, I would like to see next week also, or next meeting, a plan for pushing it out to the public, so that it doesn't seem like an afterthought, and it seems deliberate, because
And
it is
so-
a big expenditure.
Well, we'll need some visuals. I mean, we can contact the
architect can do-
architects
Yes, they can
and
do
they
that.
will bring them. And
Okay.
perhaps, I wonder whether we could get something up on the website for people to see in advance of the meeting, just because taking in a lot of information at once is hard.
It's hard.
So just to be clear, you're proposing
The
an
meeting,
update next meeting on the capital.
an in-depth discussion on the capital
Okay.
improvement plan and the source and use of funds.
And then we're pushing out to the 23rd.
Informational
for-
meeting about this. But at that
So
point, we
that's
should be able to.
only, I
It's a
mean,
month.
so can we get all this done by then? That's what I'm asking.
Well, we've got a lot of the financial stuff done, right?
No, but from a communication standpoint, I
Well,
don't think the
I think that's a
communication
good
can
question.
wait until the next meeting. I think we ought to start communicating that we're gonna have this meeting on the
do that.
23rd.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean, the
Good,
communication about the communication is the easy
Great,
part.
I just got the
Okay.
sense we were gonna wait
So,
till that meeting.
do we need to vote? Gabby, I'd sort of had assumed that this was the design we were going with. And based on an estimate, assuming.
I'd like to present it to the town first. If that's the one we want to present to the town and make a decision, that's fine, but I would like to present it to the town first before saying this is what we're going with.
Okay, and along with the financial information.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to.
And then we'll need
the.
the architect to we need to be in touch with the architect to make posters of what the design
Well, and
is.
to make sure that somebody from his
Is
office
here.
can come to that meeting.
And I guess,
Who's still here?
Sarah?
So,
and I think this is all contingent upon it, this all working with our budget,
yeah,
right? I mean,
absolutely,
so,
yeah. So,
if there's a crisis next week, I don't want to be,
Right.
you didn't tell me.
so if we wanted to have a big public meeting, could we do it at the Grange on Monday, the 23rd?
Hold on, I'll look at the calendar. I have
Just-
a rental calendar in my pocket.
The Brook Community Center.
Broadbrook Community Center. I'm trying to say that. I said that last night in the Front Porch Forum thing about tonight's meeting.
I think we have a plan.
Wait,
There is a rehearsal for, happening that evening, but we think we can do it. Yeah, we can do it downstairs. There's a rehearsal going on upstairs at that
okay, yeah.
time, if you're talking about.
No, we only need downstairs.
I mean, if
So
it's
are you
too
saying
inconvenient,
that
we
the
can use
select board
school.
meeting would take place at the Brook
I'm just
Community
considering
Center?
if we,
Yeah.
tonight was
No, I mean-
very crowded.
Yeah,
And hopefully we'll get that many people again for that meeting.
no, that would be great.
We
Yeah.
could also consider asking permission of the school to hold it in the cafeteria at the school as well, if it's inconvenient for them.
Right.
Or if we expect another big turnout.
So would you,
Well,
well, then we'll have two options and we can decide. Okay, so we are
So Sarah,
agreed.
did you hear that?
Say that again.
That if it's inconvenient to go to the Brook Community Center, we can also explore the option of using Guilford School cafeteria.
I think I can find out in a minute, because somebody
Okay.
sent me a very
Oh, great.
detailed schedule, if I can find it in my email right now, before my phone
Okay.
dies.
So I think we're agreed on next steps.
I think we need a schedule too, a proposed timeline.
I have that written down, that you requested for the next select board meeting.
Okay,
Or
that's
bef-
for the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
So the presentation then that we're talking about on the 23rd will have design, timeline, and money.
Can I ask a question yet?
Yes, sure.
So it sounds like there was a lot of discussion, some of it part of you knew, others weren't sure, which is often a concern overall in the town, that things often feel rushed in making decisions, so I just want to publicly say that. And as you were talking about the design this evening, and I just want to be clear, you said this has already gone out for bid, is that correct?
It's gone, so we should clarify, it's gone out to bid for the architect, for design, and then it's gone out for the CM.
Construction manager.
Construction management, but what we haven't finalized any construction costs. We've gotten the estimate, and then what I would make sure happens is it goes to the public before there's any final decisions.
So is GPI the people that will be constructing? Is that how I understood it?
Assuming we can get to a guaranteed maximum price with the design, with a final design after public information sessions, then yes.
Okay, so I think the only question was how many other people got to bid on it? Because it seems like, I think of placing a bid when you know what the construction's going to consist of. So I'm just wondering if people out there have had an opportunity to put bids in based on these decisions you're making tonight.
So it was an open and competitive bid, and what it was based on a schematic. And what we did is we looked at their costs. So like
But there was an RFP that
there was
went out.
yeah, that's what I mean by
And
open
I
and
just wanted
competitive.
to understand that.
Yeah, so we looked at all of their costs, so what it would cost to, what their CM fees would be, for example, and not just the estimated cost at the point in design it was at. So we looked at that as well, but also the ongoing costs that would be associated with using them for construction.
Okay.
So, Lynn, you can also see online, like every time there's a request for proposal, it's posted on the Guilford website on the front page. So we had one for the architects, and then after that we had one for the construction management. And, you know, we've had various requests for proposals.
And I appreciate that feedback, I was just asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So,
and
like, a lot
thank
of
you for
details
your
came out here,
interest.
Yeah.
And, so I wasn't sure how that worked.
In addition to the town website, it's also posted on a state bid website as well.
Mhm.
So it can be viewed anywhere in the state.
Madam Chair, I need
Sir.
a few moments. Yeah, a new battery pack, thank you.
Sarah has it.
Sarah,
So I just looked at the schedule. I think it would, if it's not too much of an inconvenience to have the April 23rd meeting at the school, I think it would work better. We do have a rental at the,
so we just have to
Robert Community
make sure the school is
Shakespeare's
available.
birth.
yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
So-
1564.
Moving on, Richard.
Yeah.
Please join us.
The next topic on the agenda is the fund corrections memo. A sigh, big sigh. So, we have discovered over the last, that there have been a number of errors over the last several years in the accounting procedures, basically. And we spent many hours working with Nemrick, with Mudgett, the town auditor, with our treasurer, assistant treasurer, town clerk, Peter, me, Katie, Buckley also contributed, and we have finally straightened out just about everything, right? We have one issue to go. But that does not have, that is unrelated to our funds and our fund balances. So we now have a thorough and accurate listing of all of our funds.
May I ask a question?
You may.
Our auditors never caught these irregularities, not irregularities, but mistakes.
They treated them differently, and there was, I don't know that they would have called them mistakes as much as they put things in different places. And when we were trying to track down actual dollars on hand, thank you, Gabby, we,
So the dollars were there, just not necessarily in the right bucket.
So it was a matter of
so we're making some
nomenclature, yeah.
adjusting
Yes.
entries now,
Okay.
so that when we look at the reserve fund, the general reserve fund, or the capital reserve fund, or the HRA account fund, we know that those numbers are accurate, and all the dollars are allocated to the right place. And so this was just trying to nail down information for you guys, you know, for your work on the capital needs thing, and to answer some questions that Gabby had answered. So Peter had created a memo for the fund balance corrections, which shows a debit from adjusting entries from, what fund is that?
That's the general fund.
From
It's
the-
the general fund balance, that's the general fund money due to from.
Okay,
And remember, in fund accounting, that debit and credit are reversed for accounts.
Peter, do you have a copy of that memo?
I have one copy.
Oh, I don't want to take yours.
I can get on
Okay.
mine online.
You can share mine if you want, Richard.
Oh.
Here, Richard.
Do I need to go through this all?
So the short story is the accountants were looking at a pot of money one way, where we were looking at it in subcategories. And
Yeah.
what the accountants did was said, oh, all this money is sort of in the same big pot, so I'm going to move money from this pot to this pot. But nobody really understood the implications of what that did from the town office. And what they did was we hold a bunch of money in reserve for our HRA in case, to pay for our employees. They moved $118,000 out of that fund into the general reserve fund, which left our HRA fund underfunded.
That was
Okay.
to compensate for
That's okay.
error that was made.
That's okay. So it
Yeah,
just,
but
that's what happened. So
Yeah.
it's basically I think of it as voiding the transaction, putting the money back where it belongs.
Right.
So we have a fully funded HRA in case something happens. That means that money then moves out of the balance of the general fund.
And then there was also to reverse an incorrect surplus transfer of the 118, which caused a deficit in the general fund. And then to reverse the expense of the 2017 cat back out from the capital fund to the highway reserve fund. That's on page 2. And that gives us fund balances of capital fund 311,000, reserve fund 406,000, highway reserve fund 114,000, and the HRA fund would be at 138,000, 115,000, 138,000, generally speaking. So,
Good work.
I am really confident about all those figures. I just am cross-eyed.
Because so I went back in all my stuff now, because now I'm getting paranoid, really paranoid, and I found as of June 30th, 2015, our reserve fund was at we're just going to call it $45,000. So we're saying in 3 years we accumulated about $350,000 in
Yeah, that makes
overages.
sense, actually.
Does that sound right?
$350,000.
So about $100,000
In the reserve fund.
reserve fund.
Oh,
So we were over budget by about $100,000 a year.
That is because of the delinquent taxes that
Collected.
were collected.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure. And I also wanted to make clear that that means if we start pulling from the reserve fund, it's not going to be filled up as quickly as it
Right.
was.
That is
So
correct.
we were lucky in a sort of backwards way that we filled up our, because we only created it in FY15. So we filled it up to its max really quickly because of all the good work that Penny is doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Correct.
and will continue to do.
Well,
But it's not going to
as
fill it the
significant.
same way.
Yeah.
diminishing returns on delinquent taxes, thank goodness, because that means the town is not covering
Yes.
the cost, the people are not paying their taxes. So, we don't have an enormous reserve fund, but.
There is always the option as well, should the town vote such at a town meeting, that you could put funds into it, but that would have to go to a townwide vote at town meeting.
So, I'm just saying, like, if we're going to start pulling big chunks out, it's not going to fill up that
Yeah.
quickly.
Right, no, it's a very good point.
Because,
You're right.
when I talked to Pete Hetzel about it, what's going to happen now, because they've gotten the delinquent taxes under control, it's going to be a wash with the back taxes paid and the back taxes not being paid generally. And it looks to be right now at the expected level of unpaid taxes.
And we have to spend some of it.
No, we have to spend it. If it was more than 20%, but in fact it's not more than 20% of the combined general and highway expenses because of that $118,000 mess.
So our max, we would have had to spend if we were over $430. But we're at
Yeah.
406, so.
But that's a very valid point, Gabby. You're absolutely right in terms of the future.
So I would seek a motion to approve the fund balance corrections that Peter outlined in his memo of March 26, 2018.
So moved. Second.
So my only concern is moving money around and pulling from the highway reserve to sort of backfill our capital, right? Because that's part of the motion, right? It's in the memo.
Yes, that was.
Yes, it is.
So the highway reserve would then be $115,000.
Right, so I would like to hold off on that until we actually look at here's my issue with that, is we told Danny we'd do one thing and he's planning his budget accordingly, and we told him this in the summer, so it's not like it was yesterday. And now we're saying, oops, no, now we found a problem, we're gonna backfill our money with your money. That he might have thought he had to spend. So did we talk to Dan about this?
So you're saying to hold off on that motion?
I'd like to hold off on that until A, we talk to Dan about this, and B, we look at the capital needs.
So you're the one who has the information about what Danny wants to spend in the coming year, right? Because you spent time with him.
Right, but I was saying, and I have all that information for next week, right? It'll all be there, like you can see the whole big picture next week. I'm asking, I'd like to hold off on that until we have a broader discussion and somebody talks to Dan and lets him know, like, hey, I know we promised you this,
No,
but.
absolutely. So the highway reserve fund, what does that normally hold at? I know we put a.
It's just the surplus.
So when Dan
And it's a
does,
surplus based on, those funds get moved after the
Out of
year.
the 009 into the 010.
they're a
If they're
rollover
there.
fund.
If they're
Right,
there.
they're a rollover
Right,
fund.
that's what I thought. So that we should be anticipating, I shouldn't say that after the salt.
I was gonna say, I don't know, after.
So do we agree that we want
But
to hold
yeah,
on
I don't
that
have a
motion?
problem. I mean, Danny, certainly, so
Yeah.
Danny, we haven't talked to Dan yet on this. So yes, that's a good point, Gabby. I agree
Okay,
with you on that.
well, so we don't need a motion to hold off on it.
No, we just need to amend his motion.
Yeah, so we'll amend the motion to, my motion to just take care of adjusting journal entry 1. Is that correct, Peter?
Yep,
And,
that's all, just adjusting journal entry 1.
Yeah.
okay,
Sec,
did you second?
yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next item on the agenda is the disposal of the heretofore thought of as the town generator. You hear? So, I'm just gonna introduce this by saying that last meeting we decided, based on all of the information that Peter had collected about the condition of the generator that is sitting at the garage, that Danny wants to get out of the garage lot, that it was not worth the $5,000 or so dollars that.
$4,000.
That was a professional assessment. that was
Yes, and that we would give it away and look for a less expensive alternate if we could get to that point. Actually, we didn't actually, that was not the decision. The decision was to give it away or to, so we agreed, and we posted it on Front Porch Forum to give it away. And I learned today that, for the first time in all my time, that the generator does not belong to the town, that it belongs to the Grange, Dick?
Belongs to the Grange.
It belongs to the Grange. So, sorry.
Oh, Sarah.
So we therefore dispose of an asset which we just today found out doesn't belong to us, although I don't know, how do we know that, Dick?
How do you know what?
How do we know that the generator belongs to the Grange?
Because it was gifted from Brattleboro to the Grange through emergency management. And the whole setup for the Grange to accept that generator was there, the piping is all there.
Sorry, can we just stay with the ownership thing for a minute? So is there a document that transfers it from Brattleboro to the Broadbrook, to the Grange, Broadbrook?
There may
Community
be, I don't know.
Center? Yeah, because I don't know that I've ever seen it.
I know you've got the specs on the generator.
Yeah, we do that. We
Do
have
we have a
that.
bill of sale that says it's ours? I guess that's my bigger question.
a good question.
Do we,
Say that again?
Do we have a bill of sale that says it's the town's? That's really what I want.
Right.
or the
Right.
Granges?
Well, it doesn't matter.
Well, I don't care if it's somebody else's, then we have a bill of
Then
sale
we-
that says somebody else on it.
Then
not
someone else
town.
can start
Yeah, somebody else can
paying
worry about
rent
it.
for keeping it
But,
there.
do we have one that says the bill of sale is from
That's a
the
good
town?
We don't have anything.
Okay.
Not that
So
I'm
we don't
aware
really
of.
have any proof of ownership. That's where
Yeah.
I'm going with this.
Okay.
It was done back in the days
So
when people
let's-
trusted people and we're replacing our generator, you need one.
Okay,
And we said yes.
thank you, Dick. Sarah?
So whether there's an actual
Paper trail.
paperwork that goes with it,
Paper
other
trail.
than the specs, I have no idea. But
Yeah,
it was
okay.
given to the Grange.
Okay,
Good.
Sarah?
As in my capacity as the president of the Broadbrook Community Center, which has recently purchased the Grange Hall from the Grange, it's so interesting. We're discovering like this item was not like included with any of our
Purchase and sale
agreements. So it's really in this really interesting place. Where our organization has been working with the Grange to think about it's really a capital investment of $1.2 million into the building, and I think we didn't know what the status was, or it's not formally articulated in that we own it, but it's kind of in this very interesting gray area. And
Well, would you like it?
Yeah, there's a gray area to be resolved.
I think we've only owned this building now for 2.5 months, and we're still in the process of figuring out our agreements with both the Grange and the town. And so we don't have a complete understanding of like working out how we might be an emergency shelter in the event of emergency, which is I think what Dickey did. That was the intention with the town originally. Right. And I think that is our intention. This is our community center. It can certainly be that, serve in that way, but we have to figure out the details, like who is doing what, like with the town and what our responsibility is. So.
Sure.
I could just offer to say, you know, I know that we're in a different position now than 4 years ago with how we're thinking about the whole building, and we're fortunate to be able to think in a more longer term way, and put, rather than where it's the whole reason why the Grange agreed to sell the building to an entity that could fundraise. So, you know, I think the Grange and the town were doing what they could with the resources that they had to kind of think in these incremental ways. But now we have this kind of a great opportunity to think, like, just like you were talking about with the town office, like, how do we want to, what kind of investments do we want to make that'll last for not just, you know, that'll be like, you know, that can last us, serve us today and into the future. So, you know, we need to sort out what the agreement, that who owns this generator. I don't think we, as the Brook Community Center, like, it's not clear to us, do we, because we have the building, do we inherit this generator? I do know that there have been some professional opinions about the the condition of the generator today, and I would, you know, defer to professionals who know a little bit more. And I know that our Building and Grounds Committee is now aware of this, and we could kind of, it's headed, and that committee's headed by Rick Zaymore. You know, I think, you know, I don't want to say that we can make a decision tonight, but, you know, we want to work with the town to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think ultimately for the outcome that we all want, which is that we have a place that we have a generator that can serve the community center in case of an emergency, right? So I think.
But apparently the generator is useless.
Well, you know what? I think I think what we should do maybe is say, hey, it's pretty clear we're not sure who the owner is, but we know it's not us.
Not us.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
we apologize that we made a mistake.
Right.
Yep.
And we're going to rescind our offer for sale
Yep.
and let the
So
Grange
work
and the
it out.
PCC deal
Yeah.
with, you know, work it out.
I think it's a triangulatory relationship to be.
It is because.
I think the generator is not, but maybe longer term plans are.
Yeah.
So, Don,
I think the only thing you really want to decide now is who owns it. And then you can go on from there and talk about what to do with it. And I was present at all the Grange meetings where this was discussed, and it was always clear to me that it was gifted to the Grange from the town of Brattleboro.
that's a great thing.
There was the whole emergency management piece. There was funding for various parts of the project. Katie was very much involved with that. Herb Meyer was obviously involved with that. There may in fact be some interesting paperwork there, but it was never been my impression that it was given to the town. So, and as Sarah
Glad
was
to
saying,
hear.
I think it's also, in terms of who owns it at this moment, assuming it's the same generator, I think it is 25 kilowatt, it sounded like the same one, yeah, right? So, yeah, so it's not two of them lying around, right? So we think it's that piece of equipment. It is true that the Broadbrook Community Center took over all the physical assets of the building with certain exceptions which were enumerated in the sale agreement, and that generator was not one of those exceptions, and therefore it would be my interpretation that the piece of equipment now belongs to the Broadbrook Community Center.
Congratulations.
And I want to just quickly say, there was never an intention by this select board
That's okay.
to take this asset
Right.
and dispose of it. No, but it's
it was in our
important
garage,
because I've heard in the community
Yeah.
that there's been a feeling that that was, and that wasn't the
Well,
direction
there's,
at all.
of course,
So
the
I think it's
possession
great.
is 9/10 of the law element. It's been up at the town garage for quite a few years.
Exactly.
So I think
So
somebody
we
there
were just
said-
trying
So
to
is
act
It
for
was
our
an
road
innocent-
boss.
An innocent mistake.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I want to move the question.
I would like to
Let's
say,
move out.
we have to find out what the question is.
there's no, there's,
I think a good point is that Rick Zaymore has a place where the generator can go and be happy. Somebody has asked about
okay,
it.
so I would like to say thank you to
Awesome.
Dick for and probably Kathy for noticing that there was a note in Front Porch Forum saying we have this generator, because we just assumed that it was our
Don saw
responsibility to finally do something about it, and to clearing that up, and it would be great if we could actually get some documentation. And I'm gonna take my select board hat off for a minute and put on my emergency management director and say, we have April, May, and June, 3 more months of funding. So if you want a generator that works for the building, and if this does not satisfy those conditions, let me know really soon, because I'll try to reorganize our grant to see if we can do that, because I think it is important to have a generator in, if you are gonna continue to be an emergency shelter, to have a generator in that emergency shelter. Could also be useful for all sorts of other things, but we've been getting
The
funding
building
for.
has, just for clarification, the building has never had a generator.
I know.
You know, it's never been hooked up, so.
I know,
Um,
and it's been on my mind for a year and a half,
sure.
so,
The
okay.
actual
Okay,
condition of
but the question has been
generator is
called.
known. I know it's a three-phase, I know it's liquid propane, all of those, it can be refabbed to accept regular propane. That was the reason we went to coat and put in a big tank.
So,
And it's all piped up.
thank you, we,
And it's great that it's going to a good home.
Yeah. Where it belongs.
so I think we are clear on where we stand with the generator. Again, Dick, thanks for clarifying that, and for Kathy, probably you noticed it, right, on Front Porch Forum? So thank you for noticing it and bringing it to our attention.
So I think we need a motion. I'll make a motion to rescind our offer of sale in light of the new information about ownership coming to light.
Second.
We can't sell it.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're not selling it.
You were giving it away.
I think Rick's
Or
gonna
giving-
give it away.
The last,
I think all of us are just getting a little dotty. I mean, up here, I'm only speaking personally, I'm feeling a little dotty,
I'm
but
sorry, who seconded that?
I did.
we all,
I
we said
We did.
all in
We
favor.
did.
Aye,
Okay,
aye,
yeah.
aye, okay.
Okay,
Can we
that's-
like table the town services, oh no, we
Yes.
can't.
Let's table some
We
things.
can't.
We can't, this has to be done because this is happening next month.
Okay,
okay.
so you,
Did you look at the contract, Gabby?
No, I want our attorney to look at it.
Well, $3,000 to fix that one, a lot cheaper than the new one.
you want the attorney to look at the contract?
We'll talk to
Yeah,
Real fixing.
yes. I mean, my opinion would be that if we're going to have a boilerplate contract or template that we go off to everyone, that our attorney should look at that.
The passive that we got from passive.
This
Yes,
came from the passive attorney,
yes, they are not our attorney.
but who is the town's attorney?
Isn't it Pat Bowe?
No, she is the town agent.
She's
We-
always, she's
But
always
she's-
acted in the
right.
capacity as
Yeah,
our
she
town
has
attorney.
At times, but
If we can ask her to take a look at the contract, I think that would be, that would
Okay.
be
Yeah, I
beneficial.
think it would be helpful if you would say, like, this is on the agenda, so, like, I think we looked at this last week and, or 2 weeks ago. It would be nice if you had had that recommendation 2 weeks ago.
Because
then
I
we would
didn't
be
think
able to
about it,
move
then I didn't think about
forward.
it, and I
You know.
can't.
So now we're
I mean-
like postponing, so hopefully,
I hope.
okay,
she'll have
either
time
we
to
will
look.
or we won't.
What's the,
Okay.
what's
So
the
we have
urgency?
some contracts to sign that may mitigate some of the penalties that we might get from passive for not having these workers' comp, these contracts in place before. That's all.
Okay, I will contact Pat.
Thank you. We'll table that. Anybody look at the warrants tonight?
I'll make a motion to pay the following payroll warrants. Payroll for the week ending March 18th, 2018, in the amount of $5,902.72. Payroll for the week ending March 25th, 2018, in the amount of $6,302.25. Expense warrant 1818 in the amount of $31,681.84. And expense warrant 18FW in the amount of $40.50 for a grand total of $43,927.31. There were no really large expenditures, salt, health insurance, unusuals.
I'll second that.
If I can interrupt, Gabby, were you going to make an exception for this?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the only, the caveat is the exception is that we wait to pay the 5 Maples until we hear back
Yes, that's
from the
good.
organization, given the delay in our town
We should get
reports going
a
out.
big discount.
Sick Richard on them.
Thank you.
So-
Miranda, you seconded?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Tell me there are no communications, Peter.
I wish I could, but I believe that we can pass them off until the next board meeting. None of them are urgent or need action.
Okay. I'd like a motion to enter into executive session
So
per
moved.
1 VSA section 313A1 to discuss personnel matters. Richard moved.
I'll second.
Yeah, Gordon seconded.
9:15.
Lordy. All in favor?
Aye.
So we are exiting executive session at 9:20 with no action. And I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session to discuss a personnel matter and to invite Jeremiah Son to join us.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
Sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So we are exiting executive session at 9:40
Excuse me.
with no action. And we now need to go into, I need a motion to go into
I so move.
executive session for personnel matters per VSA section 313A1.
And are you gonna invite someone?
None inviting anybody.
Okay.
And Richard has moved.
Second.
Gordon is second. All in favor?
Aye.
So we are exiting executive session at 9:53.
Unbelievably.
And let's see, the actions are, I'll entertain a motion, or do I have to say anything? Can I say it, or can I entertain a motion?
No, we have to move.
You have to move.
I would entertain a motion to name Chuck Carrier, to appoint Chuck Carrier as our emergency management director
So moved.
for the next year.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and thanks to him for coming
Stepping up.
forward.
I actually gave him the job description this week, and I said, I don't think I ever gave this to you before. I know you have a sense, but just in case. And he said, I still want to be able to
Well,
contribute.
that
so.
is
That's
awesome.
great. We appreciate it.
Guilford has people who step up.
And our other action is that we will, by the end of this week, I'm just going to say because I'm on the road tomorrow, provide Peter with a written response to his performance review.
With our thanks.
Yes. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I would accept that
Second.
motion. Thank you.
I know.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.